From the winding bends of Watkins Glen, we move on to the high-speed oval in Fort Worth, Texas, the Texas Motor Speedway. Tonight for the cNASCAR Chris Cup Series race, the this one's I knew it was gonna trip me up. The Chris Auto Parts 500 here tonight at Texas. Good evening, friends. Welcome to the race. My name's Carlos Zimmerman. Alongside me, my broadcast partner tonight. Glad to have him back in the booth, Logan Brakey. Logan, how are you tonight? And we're hoping for a good one tonight here at the High Banks of Texas.
Doing good, Carlos. Good to be back up here in the booth. It's been a few weeks off that I've had there, but I'm looking forward to getting back up here and calling what should be a great race this afternoon. 167 laps around the high banks of Texas Motor Speedway, as you said. This is a fast racetrack and often provides a lot of good racing here, especially down that front straightaway. Should be in for a good show here this afternoon.
Christopher Takis, or excuse me, not Christopher Takis, waiting for him to pop in here. I believe it was Christopher Morse that was able to find himself on the pole for this evening's race here at Texas. Like you said, 167 laps. A long one we're prepared for tonight. One of the longer ones that we've had the pleasure of calling this season, as we'll go ahead and we will bring up your starting grid. Christopher Morse was the man that found his way onto the pole. Christopher Takis will start to his outside, rolling off in third. Chris Otto, and then Chris Bass in the fourth spot. Chris Jones, the admin of the series, rolls off in fifth with Chris Edwards sixth, and seventh Christian Shepard, Chris Joshua Person at eighth, and then running at the top 10 tonight will be Christopher Reese and Christopher Ritchie. You'll see the rest of the starting grid roll along here on the bottom of your screen. Logan, you've been gone for a little bit, but Christopher Tate was able to pick up the win last week at Watkins Glen. As we move from a track like Watkins Glen, what are these guys, including Christopher Tate, going to have to do to be able to tame this track tonight and maybe go for the win?
Well, this is the old surface of the Texas Motor Speedway here, Carlos. So it's going to be a little bit of a rougher surface than what we're used to seeing now with the repave, and it's going to be all about. I feel like we've sung this song so many times already this season, but it's all going to be about taking care of that right front. This old surface is so abrasive on the right front, the right side tires as a whole, rather. And it's all going to be about who can manage those right side tires the best, and that'll ultimately lead to the best long run speed, which we're bound to have here at Texas Motor Speedway. We talk about 167 laps being one of the longer distances this season, but in hindsight, it can really fly by if the caution flag stays down and the green flag stays up. So this race could go by a lot quicker than we could expect it to, and same for the drivers who could be counting on a long race as well.
The points coming into tonight look as follows. Chris M. Scott, our winner from, I believe it was Vegas, he has been really good this season and staying consistent. An average finish of 6th place. He's got that win, of course. And then Christopher, he's got the points lead with 226 points. Christopher Tate is back about 27 points with his 3 wins and an average finish of 8th. Third in points is Christopher Takis with his win at Charlotte. And then, of course, Chris Robert's been rather consistent 4th, and then Christopher Ritchie rounding out the top 5. So the points battle is not very thick. It's about, from 2nd to 5th, it's about a 33-point spread, with the shortest gap being from Takis to Robert. Are these guys going to have it on their mind right now? As you know, we're still fairly early into this season, as there's still a lot of season to go before we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we're actually right at the halfway mark here as the pace car dives off. So it'll be on the back of some drivers' minds that are maybe further back than they'd like to be, but it's not a huge concern just yet in this point in the season.
Green flag will fly as 160 laps are prepared to get underway. Christopher Morse off to a good start, but right to his outside, Christopher Takis keeping up with him on the outside as they head down into 1.
Starts to get real racy here. You see guys fan out in the bottom, from the bottom all the way up to the top there. A little bit of 3 wide action back there between the 2, the 48, and I believe that was the 12. Or the 37, excuse me.
As through turns 3 and 4, Christopher Morse and his Chris French Colors machine, the black number 3, roars into the lead here to lead lap 1 here of just a marathon tonight here at Texas. Christopher Takis has settled into the 2nd position. Chris Bass up in the 3rd. Chris Otto trying to maintain in 4th. And then Chris Jones in the 5th spot with Christian Shepard up there in the 6th spot there in the Miller Chris colors tonight. So He's hoping to make a good run out of it tonight, as is Chris Edwards, just trying to have bounce-back runs after last week, as Edwards actually got a little bit of the apron there, and that really got him loose and fell right into the clutches of Christopher Reese, but he saves it there through 3 and 4, and he'll keep it going.
Yeah, that was a good save there from Chris Edwards, as you mentioned, and I was actually about to bring up the point that the places we need to keep an eye on here tonight, Carlos, are going to be our turn 2 and turn 4 walls.
Wow.
As the track really seems to tighten up on the exit of these corners. You're carrying so much speed through center off that those turn 2 and turn 4 walls come at you a lot quicker than you're expecting, especially later into the run. The car just wants to stop turning and plow right to the wall. So late into a green flag run, we need to keep an eye on that, as we're going to see guys bouncing off that wall all day, and a lot of times harder than others.
That car you saw get out of shape there on the exit of 2 last time by. That was our second place runner from Watkins Glen, Chris Chad Wilson there in the crisp auto parts colors tonight. As man, he did a good job saving that thing, as he's gotten around Chris Edwards for the 8th position, and now Chris Edwards comes under fire by Chris Joshua Personette. They're in the Chris's 26 Chevy Camaro, just outside, just on the brink of the top 10. Meanwhile, at the front, it's about a 5-car breakaway up at the front, as Christopher Morse continues to pace this field, as it's mostly single file. Saw a car back there, wasn't sure who it was that really got up into the wall. There may have been the 7 of Chris Clifford Corvo. There it is, Logan, as you said. The walls here, they may just eat you alive, but that one was coming on the exit of 2, which is very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the turns 2 and turn 4 drive in terms of exit are very similar. You do see it off of turn 4 a little bit more than you do turn 2. But yeah, as you mentioned, it was the 13 of Christopher Papa. He's running wide again here. He might catch it a second time. It just kills your momentum, especially early in a run, whenever guys are still able to get some speed underneath their cars. But looks like he was able to maintain it and keep his pace. One thing to note too, Carlos, we got a new damage model on these race cars here this afternoon. So this is the first time we're going to be seeing these guys racing with that new damage model on these cars. So we'll have to see how that plays into an effect later on.
Did not have any knowledge of that, so that's going to be interesting to see as this race goes on. Still early on, lap 7 on the board, 160 laps to go when they come to the line. Want to point out our race winner from Watkins Glen, Christopher Tate, is in this pack up here in the 18th position right now, started a little further back, and the guy who's leading the points is just ahead of him there now in the 16th position. That's Chris M. Scott in the Crisp Bull 4. And so the guys that are running up in points, maybe they're trying to take it easy right now and stay off of the lead pack for the time being, or maybe they just don't have the cars they want quite yet and may need pit stops to settle that. And speaking of pit stops, how are pit stops going to look tonight, Logan?
I mean, I would expect we're probably going to be looking at about 30 to 35 laps on fuel and tires before we start seeing guys come into pit road. Just at the rate that right front tire wears, guys might be coming in for tires closer than it would be for fuel. Not a tricky pit road to get here, but it's certainly not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But we've been to tougher places already this season where pit road is just such a challenge to get to. This is one of the more calmer pit road entries that we'll see. So in terms of wildness coming to the pits, it shouldn't be too crazy.
Speaking of the pits, I already got one car in the pits. That is Chris Clifford Corvo. I guess maybe trying to repair some sort of damage that he had when he hit the wall. Another car that has already made it into the pits as well. That's the 17 of Chris Noblet, who's 6th in the point standings. So he must have had some trouble early on, and he has come down at some point tonight. Last car on the lead lap, 22 seconds off the pace. So the Chris Alta car not off to a good start tonight as he heads down into 1. And as in terms of where he is on track, the leaders are about 2 corners away.
Certainly not the start he was hoping for, but the good news is it's only 10 laps into a 167-lap event, so plenty of time left for him to make up there, and anything can happen, as we've seen throughout this season, so the race is far from over from him.
As these guys continue to wheel around here, lap 11 on the board, about lap 12 about to go onto the board. I'm just trying to look through the telemetry. We got some newcomers coming in tonight. That's not who I wanted to point out. Chris Raul Meza is one of the new guys to make it onto the track tonight there in his number 37 D-Chris car. You gotta love it. He's running just inside the top 10 right now, so a good start for the driver of the 37. And another guy that we haven't really seen this season is the 19 of Christopher B. Williams. He's running back in the 20th position right now, just ahead of Christopher Papa. And then another new driver, the 28 of Chris Robert Hedges there. And Chris Cars, he got the apron there and got a bit loose running here with Chris Cody Jenkins. So he had his hands full there for a bit. So about 3 newcomers coming in tonight. So for these newcomers, what's going to be challenging for them when it comes to a track like Texas, and that these guys haven't really seen what these other drivers have had this year since they're making their debut tonight?
Well, it's always tricky. You kind of approach it the same way you would approach maybe an NIS race. You know, you're not used to racing with these guys week in and week out. You're not sure how every one of them races, so you're kind of just gonna feel your stuff out, kind of feel out the competition, and just put on a good performance for yourself, make a good first impression on the league, and just take care of your stuff. You mainly want to finish this race. You don't want to start your appearance off on a sour note. So bring the car home, finish the race, and just kind of get a feel for the guys you're up against, and then go from there throughout the rest of the season.
One car out of the race who did not take the green flag, that was the 09 of Christopher Lawrence, as he had some trouble on the start, tried to get it into the pits to try and fix it, could not, and so he'll finish out of the race in 28th. Michael Kaczynski, I believe, is an off-track admin for these guys, so he is not racing, as the only car that is off the lead lap right now is Chris Clifford Corriveau. So we got 25 cars on the lead lap, 15 laps in of 167 with 152 to go. We'll start just scrolling through the field here. A little bit of a gap has formed between the top 2, Logan. Christopher Morse has started to be gapping the 46 in second place of Christopher Takis.
Yeah, and this is where you see the guys that maybe are better at tire conservation start to really show their strengths. Obviously, the top 2, as you said, have put a gap between each other, but then they've got a massive gap back to third place in Chris T. Jones and that 33 old Chris Ford. And this is kind of where you start to see the guys that maybe didn't do it that maybe pushed a little too hard at the drop of the green flag start to fall back, and the guys that played a little more passively start to pull away. It's always impressive to see our pole sitters and front row starters really pull away like this late into a run, because A, that shows that they maintain the tires well, and B, they've also got pretty solid pace while doing it as well. So that's a tough skill to master. So that's a couple of good drivers that we've got up front leading this thing right now.
You mentioned Chris T. Jones running there in third in the points. He's running in 7th, 3 points behind Chris Noblet. So with the troubles Noblet has had tonight, Chris T. Jones may be able to move up to the 6th position in the point standing, so that could be good for him, as the gap was only 3 points. Behind him, Christian Shepard, probably the biggest mover since the drop of the green flag. He's up to the 4th position in the 44 Miller Chris Ford Mustang, so a really good run for him. He had some good runs. He was running well at Watkins Glen, had a little trouble, but then rebounded to come out with a good finish. And then right behind him, Chris Bass, he seems to be there at the end of every race that we've been at this season. He just hasn't really closed the deal per se. What is he going to have to do tonight, Logan, to maybe try and get over that hump and put that car in victory lane?
Well, I think you just answered your own question there, Carlos. As you said, we've seen him around the front almost every race that we've called together. It's just he hasn't found a way to close out the races, and I think that's exactly what he's got to do. He's got to figure out what's costing him the races. Is it his mistakes, or is it just being in the wrong place at the wrong time? And if it's being in the wrong place at the wrong time, well, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do about that. You just got to keep your head down and keep your head buried and just keep nose to the grindstone and keep going for it. But if it's something that he keeps doing that keeps costing him his races, he could be able to work around that and recover from that. So he's just got to figure out what it is that's keeping me from closing out these races and adjust to it. And I have no doubt that he'll be able to figure that out. He's a fantastic driver, and he's going to get this figured out, and we'll see him in victory lane before season's end, I'm sure.
Right behind him, a 2-car pack here of Christopher Reese and Chris R. Otto, who rolled off third. Otto, he's hanging around here in the top 10, but he has fallen off a little bit. But here, Christopher Reese in the 62, I believe that, the Chris Fab, whatever that is. I can't quite read it. Those colors there are the Chris Fab Inc. colors on the 62. He's having a good run. I don't believe he's had the full season to run, but you know, with the races that we've seen him in, he's done fairly well there as he's got himself up in 6th.
Yeah, exactly. Solid run to the season in this race so far, and he's had a solid start to the season. We haven't seen him poking around the lead too much, but he always seems to be around the top 10, top 15 mark, which is, I mean, that's a good way to be consistent. But he's off to a good start today, and sooner or later you want to get yourself in position to win one of these deals, as he's got to deal with a little bit of a blinker in front of him there. But he wants to make sure that he can keep this run together and bring home a solid finish this afternoon.
At the camera on the 2 of Chris Luke Daniels. He's had some good runs so far this season. In terms of points, I don't believe he's in the top 17. The top 16 are the drivers that qualify for the playoffs at season's end. So he's going to turn it around a little bit as if he wants to have a shot at it. Right behind him is the 72 Do Chris colors of Chris Edwards, and he's about to be under fire by one of those newcomers, Chris Raul Mesa, as the 37D Chris cars worked his way to catch him here in 9th. And then just outside the top 10 here, about a second behind these guys, is that National Chris car, the 25 of Christopher Tate, our 3-time winner this season and the winner at Watkins Glen. So Logan, that's a man on a mission right now, and he looks, based on our telemetry, he's got the fastest car on the racetrack.
Yeah, and you see right behind him, as you said, there, Chris Scott there in that 4 machine right behind him. But yeah, he's shown pace all season long and had a great run at Watkins Glen, obviously coming home with the checkered flag. That's a race that, you know, you want to, if you're not much of a road racer, that's a race where you want to go out and put a good show on just for yourself, for your own self-confidence. And he went out there and won the darn thing. So he's carrying a lot of momentum into this weekend. He's off to just an average start here this afternoon. But look for him to be around here at the end of this thing as well. We had a car in the wall off of 4, a little bit of a moment. I think it was the 44 Christian Shepherd. Nobody got into him. We stayed green, obviously, but a little bit of a scary moment for him, and I think it was the 2 that was around him.
The 44 of Christian Shepherd. Big time trouble for him as he was running up in the 4th position at the time. As the leaders have started to catch some lap traffic, they've caught the 28 of Chris Robert Hedges as they're going to start trying to get around lap traffic. We're on lap 27 of 167, 141 laps to go this evening from the Texas Motor Speedway. Christopher Morse has led them all, as he'll continue to do so. Pit stop should be right around the corner here on the other side of this FRN race break. Back here at the Texas Motor Speedway, here on the Flat Out Racing Network, bringing you the Chris Auto Parts 500 tonight from Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas. Carlos Zimmerman here alongside Logan Brakey. 31 laps into this thing. Christopher Morse has led them all tonight, Logan, and with pit stops looming, we'll have to see how this race is going to pan out, with pit road definitely going to be a factor as they catch lap traffic.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing we're going to have to watch out for, too, is the difference in tires. We've seen it before at other races, but I think here is going to be a pretty big factor, as lap times have fallen off quite a bit since the start of this thing. Just for instance, Christopher Morris's fastest lap was on lap 2. It was a 29.0. He's running consistent 31.2s, 31.1s right now, so about 2 seconds of fall off right there. And once the green flag cycles start, we're going to see that difference in tires. We could see guys running over each other. We might not. Who knows? But it's going to be exciting once they do start.
While we are on the FRN race break, the 24 of Chris Scallick hit the wall and brought it down pit road and has decided to put it behind the wall for this evening, as I think Christopher Takis on the exit of 2 nearly got the wall on exit, but he's still keeping good pace with Morse here.
Yeah, I think he just nicked it. The car stepped out just a little bit, and it was it didn't. He actually was managed to keep it off there for sure. A little closer, a little too close for comfort for him there, but the car definitely stepped out from underneath him. But he kept his foot in it, and he's maintaining good pace to that 3 car right now.
About 2.5 tenths off of that black number 3. They have really opened up the gap on everybody else. Chris Bass has been able to move up ahead of Chris T. Jones into the 3rd position as he goes by the lap car of Christopher Papa. So he's starting to show some speed again. After Christian Shepard had that little hiccup, he has really cascaded far back. He has fallen all the way outside the top 10, into the 11th position. And then let me just say, Christopher Tate has arguably the fastest car tonight, even though the tire fall off is really bad right now, as he's laid down the fastest lap out of anybody, a 28.9. Yeah, I'm looking through the field. Yeah, only one other person has laid down that time, and that's Chris Clifford Corvo, who's 2 laps down. As Tate battles Chris Luke Daniels for the 5th position, Tate is looking really fast and is looking to maybe go back-to-back.
Yeah, he's on a mission right now. He started 21st, and he's done a good job of taking care of his tires. He's, as you said, he's in a battle for 5th right now with the 2 car, but he's definitely made a charge to the front, and he's going to continue to do so. He's been fantastic with saving those tires, as we've talked about all season long. And tonight's just another example. He's got a really fast 25 machine underneath him tonight.
They clear the lap car of Christopher Papa. He continues to run in the 6th position there, laying down flat lap times of a 31.56 last time by. This time it was a 31.39, so just about a tenth slower than our race leader Christopher Morse, but definitely a fast car underneath that Chevrolet, as the battle for the lead may start to thicken here. Christopher Takis, our winner from Charlotte, he is really hounding Christopher Morse tonight. Christopher Morse is a guy I believe did not take the green flag at Daytona. So this is new. This is new for us, to being able to see a different guy up at the front. We typically see guys like Takis, Bass, and Christopher Tate and Chris M. Scott leading these things. So to see a guy that did not start the season leading this thing, that seems to be a message being sent to the guys who have been dominant this season, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, this is an awesome performance for him so far. He's not even top 17 in points, so I mean, he's only got a few races under his belt. If not, I'm not sure if this is his debut or not, but regardless, a fantastic effort here this afternoon so far, and he's done a good job of holding off Christopher Takis as well, who we have seen quite a bit of up at the front. He's no stranger to the front of the field. He's got 2 wins and just as many starts as the rest of the field, so that's no easy competition behind him. So he's putting up a good show here this afternoon.
We'll look through the field here. A couple of guys that have worked their way inside the top 10. The 26 of Chris Joshua Personette in the Chris's colors. He's worked his way up into the 9th position with his Chevy Camaro, approaching the lap car of Christopher Papa now as on the exit of 4. A good run for him there in the 26. We've seen him quite a bit this season. Not quite those same colors. It's a nice scheme he's got tonight. Not in the top 16 in points, so that's one thing to keep an eye on. If he can get a good run, he can start rebounding, as Chris Raul Meza is on pit road, and that might be the start of our green flag pit stops here on lap 40.
Yeah, so it was about 5 laps off with my guesstimation there, but this is probably when the fuel starts to go away. Remember, these guys are running on 75% fuel tank here, so the guys that maybe conserve that right front a little bit are maybe going to go a little bit longer than this, but I think we'll see guys at the back maybe try and take a gamble, pit early, get those fresh tires to try and make up some time. Had a little bit of a battle for the lead brewing, but they seem to have backed off just a bit, maybe trying to get through these green flag cycles, see if one can overjump the other.
Christian Shepard has brought it down into pit lane as we'll now cover the green flag pit stops here, gets it in the stall well, and will start service on his machine. Was running inside the top 5 early on, but has fallen off. Christopher Landy is another driver that has made his way onto pit road in the Chris colors. As, guys, towards that just outside the top 10, we're starting to make the pit stops, but the cycle, regardless, has started as Christopher Morse and Takis are starting to come off of the turn number 4 now and head out and make another lap, as they have made no motion to pit road just yet. Now, here's the thing. You got to think, at big racetracks, like Daytona, Talladega, and maybe even Auto Club in Michigan, you want to pit with a group, so that you have a pack of cars when you leave. Now, the draft works a little bit different from Texas, but Texas has a history of being known as, should we have a restrictor plate at this track? So you got to think, is the draft really very important here, and do you need to pit with a group, or can you pit by yourself and still have good speed, Logan?
Well, I mean, you brought up the point about the restrictor plates, and back before this package, it used to be it was a no restrictor plate track, so guys were pushing 200 miles an hour into the corners. But now that these cars have slowed down, it's a lot lower speeds here, only about 185 entering the corners on fresh tires. So no, pitting by yourself is not detrimental. In fact, you probably want to do that to avoid getting run over coming into pit road. So draft is not that big of a factor here on this old surface. It would be a different story if we were on the new surface.
Christopher Tate is in pit lane, just had his car serviced, and he'll be leaving out. Chris Otto also in pit row. Chris T. Jones pits out of the top 5 and is making his way down. So the leaders are starting to trickle down into pit lane, as you'll watch his pit stop here for the old Chris colors, number 33 of Chris T. Jones. So these guys, they have got to be very careful here on pit road. You could really lose your race on pit road, as right there, Christopher Reese pitting out of the top 10, overshot his pit box. As soon as I was talking about mistakes, a mistake happens on the 62.
Yeah, it's always more detrimental whenever you make the mistake under green, because a second lost on pit road could be 4 seconds lost on the racetrack. So definitely an unfortunate mistake, but all he's got to do now is just look to bounce back from that. As you see, our leaders now catching some pretty heavy lap traffic here. I don't believe this lap traffic has pit just yet, but it's going to get a little bit hairy for him here.
The 5 of Chris Hubka gets out of the way of our leaders here, and just ahead of them is Cody Jenkins, as these guys are on the tail end of the lead lap, because our 2 leaders, besides our 2 leaders, the only guys that have not pit yet are Luke Daniels, our points leader Chris M. Scott, and then the 3 Hubka, Cody Jenkins, as Hubka and Cody Jenkins make the dart for pit lane. Chris Edwards is the other car that is not pit either. So
just dove in as well.
So about 4 or 5 cars, as you saw it there. Takis dives into the pits. Morse stays out there, so Morse looks to push it here. When he pits, as Edwards there just got the wall there on the exit of 2, and that car is fishtailing.
See, and that's what we talked about that briefly too, is those turn 2 and turn 4 walls. Edwards is on really old tires there, 46 laps on those tires. As we see our leader come in, that wall will sneak out and grab you, especially on old tires. All right, we got a caution on the racetrack.
Caution is out as Christopher Morse is in pit road. He should be able to service that machine, but the caution is out for somebody on the racetrack, as you'll see Morse pull down into his pit stop, the first one here. Luke Daniels had just made it onto pit road. I don't know if he had beat the caution flag, but do you know who it was for, Logan?
Jones on the back straightaway got the turn 2 wall and spun down to the inside.
Here you see Chris T. Jones there off the lead lap as of right now, but that is why we are under our first caution. We'll take a look back right now and see what happened to him, as Morse has completed his pit stop.
He actually
Oh,
never got
wow.
the wall, Carlos. I apologize. He got just ran out of racetrack there. He was racing the 71 of Christopher Landy. Got to his inside and it spun him sideways and right into the back bumper of Chris Corvo in the 22 or in the 7.
So you'll see him here coming through turns, entering turn number 1 here. Yeah, you see him. He's coming up here on the 71. 71, I think, got the apron, and then, yeah, just ran out of racetrack and just lost it, and, yeah, ran right into the back of the 7 of Chris Clifford Corvo and spun down on the back straightaway. Woohoo! Boy, man, he almost got clobbered by the 19 of Christopher B. Williams. Man, you got to think that you could almost fit a piece of paper between them, and that's how close they were there on the back straightaway.
This is big implications too for the 7 because I don't know if you saw on the replay, but his back bumper is now gone from that contact. That's part of this new damage model. It's very easy to lose fenders and hoods and bumpers now, so he's going to have to come in, and that's going to be about 5 minutes of optional repairs, believe it or not, with this new damage model. The slightest bit of contact requires a lot of repairs, so that's going to be a factor here for that 7 car.
Whew, as you saw the onboard there with the 19 of Christopher B. Williams, that was very close on the back straightaway. That is what has put out the caution right at the tail end of our green flag pit stops. Our leader, Christopher Morse, had just come down and made pit stops, and in doing that, that might trap more than half the field off the lead lap.
Yeah, I'm showing 13 cars on the lead lap right now. These are all wave arounds in front of Christopher Morse right now. So that should be, yeah, I'm only, yeah, 12 cars is all I'm showing on the lead lap right now.
So you got to think the guys like Christopher Ritchie, Chris Jonathan Leach, Chris Raul Mendez, and Mesa, and of course the guy that brought out the caution, Chris T. Jones, all those guys trapped one lap down right now, would need probably another caution and then maybe take the wave around to be able to get back on the lead lap. Before this, we had about 20 cars on the lead lap as Christian Shepard, actually, I'm looking back through here, he just really cascaded. He had a long, lengthy pit stop to maybe repair damage, and he's now 2 laps down, the first car 2 laps down in 20th. But yeah, as you said, 12 cars on the lead lap here when we get back to green, and we'll have a new second place car on Christopher Tate.
Yeah, I was just going to point that out. He's able to cycle his way up to second, and his charge to the front continues. It'll be interesting to see what he has for Christopher Morse and what Morse is able to do to defend that hard charge in 25.
As they continue to wheel it around here, looking ahead, trying to see when the pace car lights will come out, as these guys are all just wave around cars. Man, that caution couldn't have come at a more timely time for Morse. While on pit road, and then not being on the racetrack, because if he was still running around on the racetrack and the caution came out, he would have had to pit under caution and would have more than likely not be in the lead right now.
Yeah, I would have thrown him outside the top 10. He probably would have been the last guy on the lead lap, as I think he was the last lead lap car to pit. So he would have been tail end in the lead lap, and that would have been Chris Luke Daniels who would have inherited the lead as they run at the moment. So definitely a very fortunate break for him, and he'll gladly take that. And a lot of guys are, as you said, he had only lapped up to about maybe 19th or 18th position. So we had about 17 to 19 cars on the lead lap. A couple of those guys were going to get their laps back once Morse hit pit road, and it was almost as if as soon as he crossed the commitment line, the caution flag flew. So imagine there was a lot of groaning over the radio at those guys that got caught a lap down. And that's going to make these restarts very interesting here, because it's now a race within the race, Carlos.
No, you're absolutely right. I do want to point out one thing. Christopher Tate just came back down to top the car off with fuel, and I believe that's going to hand second place over to Chris Noblet, who had issues early on, and with that rebound, he's able to find himself inside the top 5 here.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. He had trouble early, and he was able to keep his head down and stay focused, and he's recovered obviously very nicely up in second place there.
Looks like the pace car lights are still not out, so they'll continue to wheel it around here. Lap 53 of 167 on the board as we're working our first caution. Pace car lights are out, as it appears. So everyone that was taking wave rounds are taking them right now. So, but with the pace car lights out, these guys look like they're not setting up, getting ready to get set double files. So they may go back on again before we take this green flag here. I'm not sure.
Confusion in the running order here. I'm not entirely sure either, but it looks like they've got it sorted out for the most part. 72 going to get in line here at the last set. No, maybe not. So a little bit of confusion here as we come down to take the green. Caution. Yep, no go.
No go. Lights
We'll
back
go
on.
around
The pace
one more
car will
time.
just
Yep.
drive down pit lane and then bring it back out. 'Cause, yeah, everyone was not set yet. Man, that pace car drivers was like, I'm ready to head down pit road and just park it for a bit, and then they told him to put the lights back on as soon as he pulled down. So we'll go around one more time.
Yeah, again, not sure what might have led to that. It looks like each time we come around here, one more person goes a lap down. So we're going to restart with only 10 cars on the lead lap here, Carlos. So what does that mean for the guys that are on the lead lap? Well, it's you can take it pretty easily here on this next restart, knowing that the worst you can fall back to is 10th in terms of scoring. No need to push too hard, but for the guys that are all trapped a lap down, you've got Christopher Ritchie, Chris Leach, Chris Scott, Chris Edwards, a lot of fast cars trapped a lap down. So it's going to be a pretty wild restart here in terms of those guys fighting for the lucky dog.
You know, I'm trying to look through here, and it looks like there's a lot of confusion as to what's happening here. Because with that caution coming out when it did, I don't know if they froze the field, and that's why you got lap cars lining up here behind our two leaders. But yeah, I'm awfully confused.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, that could be the case. So we'll see if it gets thrown again. No, it looks.
Nope.
Yeah.
We're going. Nope, and it's back on.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the situation is here. You could be right. They might have frozen the field as they run, which would it should put. What needs to happen is the I believe the 17 and the 35 need to just drop to the end of the line would be, I think, the best solution, because if obviously Carlos, if you wave them around, they're going to get their laps back. So I think an EOL in this scenario should be the best situation. Drivers are telling them just to restart and they'll sort it out.
So race control just trying to figure out what they got to do here. This is very confusing as to why this is happening. As everyone is just not really set up even like double file as they should on restarts here. It's the front two is Morse and Noblet, but the second row and then even the third row are guys that are trapped a lap down. That includes our points leader, Chris M. Scott. You see him there in the Crisp Bull colors right there, third on the outside line. He may be going to try and run up here and maybe get his lap back here and get around the three, but the pace car he'll dive again. We'll try it again, maybe. No lights.
Time, yep.
No lights, and we're going to go. Green flag back in the air at lap 56 of 167. Morse, a really good jump there. Christopher Ritchie, the lap car right there, will get up to the 3 car there and try to get his lap back as he's the first car 1 lap down. But Morse, he looks to be pretty good right now as they head through off the onto the backstretch here as he's got a lap car now set between him and second.
I think what had happened on that restart here, Carlos, as we see these guys head into turn 3, is you had the 3 of Christopher Morse and you had Chris Noblet and the 17. When the caution came out, they were ahead of this group of lap traffic that we're looking at now, and they chose not to pit because they had just pit under green. Because they stayed out, the lap traffic that was right behind them when the caution came out got trapped behind them coming to the restart. Thus, they were not able to get the wave around. Therefore, they had to start behind the leaders, which is what led to all the confusion, I think. That is the best conclusion I can come to.
Battle on for second as Christopher Takis looks to take that back as he gets around the 17 Chris Salta car. The lap car, Christian Shepard, trying to get one of his 2 laps back. Ooh, the car stepped out a little bit there, and he was able to save it, luckily, as the points leader was right there as well, Chris M. Scott. But Takis still has a lap car set between him and his mission, the race leader, Christopher Morse. And yeah, as you said, 10 cars on the lead lap. Not really a big group of cars as Takis now makes the move on Ritchie to get around and maybe go run down Morse.
Yeah, and as I said too, if you're scored on the lead lap right now, just take care of your tires. Make sure you're there for the long run, and the most you're going to lose is all the way back to 10th. So they're in a good spot right now, those lead lap cars, and they can just take care of their stuff. Let this race come to them. As we see, Christopher Tackis navigated all that lap traffic pretty swell, and he's up there right on the back bumper of Morse, coming off of turn number 4 here. Throw a blanket over the top 3.
Yeah, Noblet hanging around there just ahead of lap car, and here comes Tackis to the inside of Christopher Morse. Really good run there on the front straightaway, and for the first time today, we're going to have a new leader here at lap 60 of 167 as Christopher Tackis takes over the lead from the Chris Wrench car of Christopher Morse, but Morse may try to get it back here. No, couldn't quite do it, and Tackis clear into the lead.
That's why guys love that front straightaway so much, myself included. It's such a favorite among so many drivers. You're able to get such good runs on your competitors through this cookie-cutter tri-oval. You might not think it's that big of an advantage, but when you're able to nail those 2 little short left-hand kinks, you're able to get a good run into turn number 1, and that's exactly what Chris Tackis did as he's pulling away from that 3 machine.
The gap back to third place right now is now about 2.4 seconds as Chris Noblet is just cascading through the field right now.
Big check up in 3 and 4. Sorry, Carlos.
What happened to Morse?
Big check up in 3 and 4. The 24, I believe it was. Chris Robert Hedges got all out of shape. He's still out of shape. He's going to spin in turn number 1. Debris everywhere. Little bit of contact with the 37, I believe.
Chris Robert Hedges.
The 98, I apologize.
It was the 98 of Chris Roberge as he's got Christopher Tate right behind him. These guys, just a lot of lap traffic. This is a really big pack of cars right here. The 98 leading this pack. Of course, Christopher Tate trying to get free of them so he can go run down the 2 leaders. There's a lot of good battling up here at the front. Meanwhile, at the front, it's about a 5-car breakaway, so we'll keep it here on Christopher Tate and this pack of cars as Chris Luke Daniels stepped out of line there on the exit there. Really fishtailing down the backstretch. He keeps it going just ahead of Chris Otto here. These are lead lap cars here battling. So as you said, Logan, these guys got to save these tires as Chris Edwards ducks into the pits. These guys are really racing pretty hard here just outside the top 5.
Yeah, it's just a hornet's nest back here. Everybody trying to get to that clean racetrack in front of them that they see there that now is claimed by Chad Wilson in that 9 machine and Christopher Tate up there in 3rd. It's green racetrack up there, so everybody wants to fight to get that clean air on their nose and be able to get away from this group, but it's just a dogfight back here right now.
Looks like they're finally starting to settle it out single file here as you see Chris Bash just ahead trying to get around the lap car of Chris Hubka. Chris Hupka's the 2nd car on the guy that's first in right now. The lucky dog spot is Christopher Ritchie. But he's battling up there with the race leader, Christopher Tackis and Christopher Morse. As I'm looking at the times here, Christopher Tate is in clean air, and as you said, and is really laying down the hammer right now, as he's running about 5/10 quicker than Christopher Tackis.
Yeah, and he's making the charge slowly but surely. He's managing his stuff well, and they're battling for the lead up there again, which is all playing in the favor of Chris Tate because they're going to use their stuff up, and he's going to be able to close that gap pretty easily. As we see Christopher Morris going back by, hasn't quite cleared Tackis just yet. It's a really hefty battle for the lead here in 3 and 4.
The lap car trying to help Tackis, but couldn't do it. Tackis going to move across over there through the corner. What a move by the 46, and at the line at drag race, he leads the lap. Man, an incredible power move out of the 46, our winner from Charlotte, to get the lead back from Morse.
And here comes the 3, and Morse is not done yet. He's going to try and do the exact same thing off of 2. Looking to the inside, he's going to get the run in the turn 3.
Tackis trying to close the door. Man, he almost took the nose off of the 3. Good battle for the lead here, just ahead of the first car, 1 lap down, Ritchie. They're continuing to do battle here, and I don't think it's going to end as Morse trying to move Tackis up the racetrack there to try and get him off of him. Still there, though, is Tackis there, but now he finally clears him on the enter of 1.
That got the 46 a little bit loose in 3, and Tackis is going to look right back to the inside here, I think, going in the 3. He's going to push him going down the back straightaway.
And And as you said, this is playing right into the hands of Christopher Tate, who has got the gap down to about a second and a half now, as he's clear of lap traffic himself. But now Takis, backs off of the 3 and allows the 3 to just clear out into the lead as lap 69 goes on the board. 99 laps to go tonight at Texas. A long marathonic race tonight, if you will, as the guys now try to gap the lap car Christopher Ritchie. Man, some really good racing among our 2 leaders.
Yeah, and that's what this track provides. You know, it can be abrasive on the tires, but man, it's a fast speedway, and it always provides good racing, as we're seeing right now. It seems to have settled down for the moment almost everywhere on the track. Everybody's sorting their stuff out, but just fantastic show here put on this afternoon by our 2 race leaders.
And with those guys really just racing each other, you'd think Christopher Tate would catch up, but I think Christopher Tate may have used a little bit too much of his stuff as the gap is starting to widen again. That time by Morse was quicker by about a 1/10 of a second than Tate. So it looks like Tate is he's going to be good in the short run speed, about 18, 19 laps. But then as soon as they get to the halfway point of these the run for these tires and fuel, the car starts to fall off for the 25.
Yeah, and it could have just been he might have ran a little bit harder to try and get through all that traffic we saw earlier, so he could have used up his tires a little quicker than he would have liked to in terms of compared to the previous run that we saw him move up through the field. But he's in a good spot right now. He's got green racetrack all around him, plenty of room to just move around, try a little bit of a different line through the corners, see what's going to be best for those tires, and see if he can find a little bit of speed. That time by ran a 30.7 compared to our leaders 30.6. So you're right, just a little bit faster for our 2 race leaders. Tack is actually the fastest between the 3 of them that last time by. So we'll see how this plays out in about 10-15 laps.
Let's check on our other guys that are inside the top 10. Chris Bass, here he is again, hanging around. He's up in the 4th position right now, running pretty well there in the Red Eye Designs colors there tonight. As right behind him is the Chris car of Chris Luke Daniels there, the Stars and Stripes Chris car there, the 2 tonight, having a good run as well. And same with Chris Joshua Personette. He's up into the 6th position now. He has steadily climbed his way and stayed patient, and then was one of those lucky guys that didn't get caught off the lead lap. And he's got himself up to the 6th position, Logan, having a really good run tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. He took advantage of the situation that fell in his lap almost, and he's making the most of it right now, as you said, in a battle for 6th right now with the 88 of. Whoops, nope, got my cars wrong. He's in a battle with nobody.
That's the lap car.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's off to a solid start here, and he made the most of that restart. And taking advantage of the opportunity that presented himself to him.
You mentioned Chris Otto running there in the 7 Nation. Chris number 88 running really well right now in the 7th position. As he's been there in certain portions of the race. He was good running well at Daytona, and same with Vegas, but kind of has fallen off since then. In terms of points, he is the guy that is on the cut line, 16th place. He's 3 points behind 15th Chris Newman, and I believe Newman, he did not even take the green flag tonight, so he may be able to jump ahead of Chris Newman after this race, and then maybe even jump over Chris Jonathan Leach if he keeps his nose clean, because Chris Jonathan Leach, I was going to mention, he is out of the race in the 25th position. So Chris Otto could really make a big jump here in terms of the points to get out of that cut spot, as he was only 2 points ahead of Christopher Reese, who's right behind him there in 8th.
You know, and Chris Otto being down in 16th in points really doesn't do him justice in terms of the performance he's had this season. We saw him lead a lot at Auto Club here very early on in the season, and we've seen him up at the front in spurts throughout the other races that we've seen this season as well. So he's in a similar boat as Chris Bass. You know, he just hasn't been able to close out the good races he's put together, and I'm sure he'll figure that out and be able to turn it around. But the position he's in points really doesn't do his performance this season all that justice.
Chris Chad Wilson running in the 8th spot, our second place finisher from Watkins Glen last week, having a really good run there in the 8th spot, running pretty solid lap times. He's a 31.6, so he's one of the slower ones of our top 10 as he's trying to stay ahead of Chris Noblet, who restarted second. Noblet being probably the guy that has really fallen back big. I don't know if he gambled on pit road and that's why he wasn't able to hold second place, or the car's not really quite where he wants it there, Logan.
Well, and we talked too at the top of the show. He got the wall off of turn 2 there to start this race. So that damage is definitely hanging around and affecting him and the way the car is performing. So it's definitely not going to be running to his liking. And I think that's could be the reason we see him dropping back as much as we are. But the bright side is there's only 10 cars on the lead lap, and it doesn't look like a yellow is going to come out anytime soon. So it's not going to be detrimental to him just yet.
Currently battling the 9 of Chris Chad Wilson, and Wilson just goes ahead and lets him go by there in the entrance of a 3-car battle here with Reese right there lurking there in the 10th position, the battle being for the 8th position. Christopher Morse has opened up at about almost a second lead over Christopher Takis. And here on lap 80 at 167, on the other side of this FRN race break, pit stops should start happening for our leaders and the rest of the field here, as we'll head now to the FRN race break. Welcome back here to the Flat Out Racing Network's production of the cNASCAR Chris Cup Series here tonight at Texas, the Oak Chris Auto Parts 500. Carlos Zimmerman here alongside Logan Brakey as pit stops are starting to get underway, Logan.
Yeah, and this is around the mark that we expected this to happen here. The leaders are going to stretch it out again, just like we saw last time. The thing about the pit window here at Texas, Carlos, is it lasts for quite a while. The one that we had earlier went almost about 10 to 11 laps before our leader, Chris Morse, finally brought it down pit road. So it's usually a pretty big pit window here at Texas.
Morse continues to lead. Christopher Takis has fallen about a second behind him in the second position. Christopher Tate has kept himself in the third position. Same with Chris Bass in fourth. And then Luke Daniels in the fifth spot. Chris Otto has been able to work his way up into the sixth position and is starting to run down the two of Luke Daniels. He's got Chris Joshua Personette in tow in seventh. And then a pack of other cars just to wrap up the late lap cars. Chris Noblet has settled in the eighth. Christopher Reese trying to hold off Chad Wilson in ninth with Chad Wilson in 10th, as that battle is actually going to be our only really battle on the racetrack among our leaders right now, as the gaps are just really, really spread out, as Wilson's trying to get the spot from Reese and can't do it, but now Otto is starting to bring Personette closer as well.
You see in the picture there, the number 4 machine of Chris M. Scott, our point leader, really struggling here this afternoon. He just went 2 laps down a few laps ago. He did get caught a lap down under our first set of green flag cycles, but you can see on the look of that machine, he has been in a little bit of conflict here this afternoon. So not the day our points leader would have hoped to have. And he's just going to be looking to salvage as many points he can get at this point, as he's currently scored 17th, 2 laps down here this afternoon.
Yeah, Chris M. Scott, he came in with a 27-point lead over second place Christopher Tate, so he may be able to hold on to the lead going into next week. But it's going to be very iffy if he's going to be able to. He needs to try and salvage the most that he can tonight, as the gap between Morse and Takis just continues to grow. It's about 1.5 seconds now, as Morse is now starting to work some lap traffic here on the back straightaway, just past Chris Clifford Corvo, who looks to be heading to the pits this time. The only car that has really gone to the pit lane was Christopher Landy, but it looks like he had an extended stay there in the pits, and he's now 20th, 4 laps down, as everybody else should start hitting the pits soon, with the guy who has really been out there the longest is Chris Raul Meza, one of our newcomers. He's in the 13th spot, last car 1 lap down. He's trying to get a good run in tonight. He's almost on 50-lap-old tires since the last time he came down pit road.
Yeah, and this is the stage of the race here, Carlos, where you're going to see guys try to stretch this stop as long as they can, because I think you'd be looking at one more pit stop from here. So you want to stretch this one as long as you can, so you can push your last one as long as you can as well, to give yourself a nice sprint to the finish where you can push the car as hard as you can and not have to worry about saving the tires and making them last at the end of the race. So we're going to see guys, I think, stretching this one as long as they can, with the assumption that this is going to stay green to the end. Remember, the only caution we've had this afternoon has been for a pretty minor incident, just a little coming together in the green flag cycle. So it's a pretty bold, pretty accurate assumption to say that this race might go green to the end.
Just mentioned Chris Raul Meza. He's going to bring it down pit lane and get ready for his start. I think this is the one that should start the cycle of guys coming down into the pits, as Morse continues to just pace the field right now on lap 92 of 167. Christopher Takis about a second and almost a full 2 seconds behind the leader now, as it looks like Morse, he is pretty good on the long run. The short run speed may not be there, but if a race is going to go green to the end, this is really going to benefit the 3.
Yeah, that machine is just on a rail right now, Carlos. I've been watching him lap after lap, and it's the exact same line through 1 and 2 and then through 3 and 4, lap after lap. There's no adjusting his line at all. There's no bobbing and weaving. There's no hesitation. He's pointing the car, and it's sticking in an area that he wants it to go in. And it's just, he's got such a good machine under him right now, and he's making the best of it as we continue to see him open up that gap to Takis.
As the gap now sits at 2 seconds now, as Christopher Tate has brought it into pit lane and is starting to make his way out of the pits. As it's very interesting that he comes down as Chris Bass makes it to pit road now. Interesting that Tate came down then. He is about on a 4 to 5 lap different cycle than Morse and Takis, and he decided to pit even before those guys pitted. So that's going to play maybe big dividends coming towards the end of this thing.
I think we see that working out for him, though, Carlos. I'll put money on it that we see him cycle out to the lead, honestly, because the tire differential is so huge here. The fall off is just so immense on old tires. He's going to be able to push hard, and I think he will cycle out ahead of Christopher Moore.
And Luke Daniels! And another car just spin off the corner of turn number 2. They're down on the apron. That's Chris Roberge. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Oh my goodness, I just saw it in our screen there. He is sitting off the racetrack on the apron. Looks like he'll try and get it back going. No caution for the spinner, Chris Roberge. Luke Daniels and him got together there as they were coming down into turn number 1.
And the guy I was talking about, Chris Tate, was right there. His day about went up in smoke, but it was a narrow avoidance there for that 25 machine as the 98 and the 2 came together on the front straightaway. And it was nearly disaster for his afternoon here.
Luke Daniels recovers and settles into the 3rd position. Definitely some front-end damage. I see some left front damage on that number 2, so he's going to have an extended stay in the pits. He was running so well today, and then he got collected with the lap car there. I'm going to point out one thing too, Logan. you got to be really careful when you come off the apron and come off the racing surface and go down onto the apron and not push your...
Sorry, Carlos. Sorry to step on you. One hard in the inside wall on the back straightaway. It's the 37 of Chris Raul Meza. It's not going to bring out the yellow, but he hit that wall hard on the back straightaway. Caution out for him now.
Caution is out.
I mean, he pounded that wall.
And again, it happens right as Christopher Morse surrenders the lead and comes into the pits, but the difference this time, he wasn't the last car to pit. Christopher Takis did not pit, and you know, this is going to mean good things for everybody that was caught off the lead lap there inside the top 10. When Takis has to come down to pit, everyone there, just about everyone on the racetrack can take a wave around and get back on the lead lap or get one of their 2 laps.
Yeah, exactly. And it's currently at the time of caution, there's only 5 cars on the lead lap, so it's going to be interesting to see how many are left over at the end of this thing. I think we'll cycle out to about the same number we had last time, which is about 10. But we'll see where that cycles out.
We'll step now and take a look at the replay and see what happened to Chris Raul Mesa to bring out the caution. As you saw him there sideways on the back straightaway, and when he brought it back on the racing surface, it triggered the caution. As you'll see here on the back straightaway, I'm not sure if he had any help. I think he may have just brought it around on his own, Logan.
Yeah, it was. I think it was cold tires trying to get up to speed. He was a little bit offline through 1 and 2, and he tried to put a little too much wheel into it off of 2 because I think he thought he was going to pound the wall, and when he did that, the car just went away from him, and he tried to gather it up and clip the inside wall. He didn't hit it as hard as I thought he did, but it certainly did some damage.
As you see here, the caution had not come out because he was technically off the racing surface, but then iRacing officials saw he was trying to bring it back on, and that car was very slow as he was slid all the way down from just on the exit of turn 2 all the way to almost turn 3, and that's why iRacing officials had to throw out the caution.
So as they run right now, our leader is Chris Takis. He's you see him there behind the 19 in line. All of these guys, should they not pit, will get the wave around, but it looks like some of them are going to come in. In fact, most of them are going to come into pit road, which means that those ones you see coming to pit road will not get the wave around. So they will continue to stay at least 1 lap down or more.
Takis crosses the line. He puts lap 100 on the board of 167, the scheduled distance this evening. As Christopher Morse should line up in the 2nd position. That's going to be a little different for him. Christopher Tate has brought it back down pit road, Logan.
Yeah, he scored on the lead lap, but you take note of how many cars are on the lead lap, and right now it's only 8, so he figured, what the heck, I'm going to bring it down, top up on fuel, get some fresh tires on there, and he'll restart tail end of the lead lap. Possibly he might restart in front of the wave around cars, which would be the 97, the 62, the 88, and the 26. So Chris Tate might only drop back to 4th. However, he would have to come through a bit of traffic.
Yeah, that would be the unfortunate thing for him, is that he would have to deal with lap traffic and even possibly wave around cars. So as it cycles out, it's going to probably leave us with 8 cars off the lead lap, as Chris Luke Daniels and Chris Chad Wilson are the 2 that are going to be and Christopher Ritchie are going to be the ones that are going to be only 1 lap down. Chris Chad Wilson having an extended stay in pit lane. He's now coming off, so he won't be eligible for the wave around. I'm waiting to see here when the pace car comes up here and pick up the leader once these wave around cars come by. It's currently 7:04 in the Central Time Zone, 8:04 over for you folks out east. Coming up at the bottom of the hour on the Flat Out Racing Network, the Soda Guys Cup Series will be coming to you from Michigan International Speedway. Seth Cole and Sam Dyer will be on the call for that one, as it'll be ought to be a fun one there at the 2-mile, very fast racetrack of Michigan Speedway. Again, coming up at the bottom of the hour, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, here on the Flat Out Racing Network channel. We hope you stick it out with us, though, as we're going to have 66 laps to go when they come around next time by. Carlos Zimmerman, Logan Brakey, bringing you the action tonight in the cNASCAR Chris Cup Series here at Texas Motor Speedway. So far tonight, Logan, it's been fairly exciting as to how it has happened. And, sometimes people would be like, oh, you need cautions for it to be exciting. We've only had 2 tonight, but we've still seen our fair share of excitement.
Yeah, it's been a tame race in terms of the yellows and the argy bargy stuff, and but at the same time it's been exciting. We've seen exciting racing up with the front between Takis and Morse, and it's certainly not over yet. There's still plenty of laps left to go. Definitely at least one green flag cycle still left remaining in this. This caution's going to help that. But there's one more strategy call left to make in this race, so this is far from over here as the lights are off on the pace car, so we'll be going back green this time by.
Lights are out on top of the pace car, and again, this is going to be the same lineup as just about the same lineup as we had last time. Chris Noblet is going to restart on the outside of the 46 of Christopher Takis with Christopher Morse, Christopher Tate, Chris Bass. The top 5 and the rest of the cars on the lead lap will be Christopher Reese, Chris Otto, and Chris Joshua Personette. First car's a lap down. The only cars 1 lap down will be Chris Luke Daniels, Chris Chad Wilson, 9th and 10th, and then Christopher Ritchie in 11th, with Chris T. Jones, our only car, 2 laps down. In the 12th position, rest of the cars in the race, Christopher B. Williams, Chris Hubka, Chris Roberge, Christopher Landy, Christian Shepard, Chris Raul Meza, who brought out the caution, Christopher Papa still wheeling it out there, Chris Clifford Corriveau, our points leader, Chris M. Scott, 21st, 7 laps down, not the night he wanted, and then Chris Robert Hedges in the 28 there, 22nd, last car on the racetrack. Pace car laps are out, and he comes down, though. We'll go back green now with 65 laps to go, and they're going to bring out the yellow again.
Yeah, I was very shocked that they were going to even try and attempt to restart that race. They were just not lined up at all, so they've thrown the yellow again. This might still mess things up because the 2, Chris Luke Daniels, got one heck of a launch. He might get his lap back here. It'll be curious to see if they will let him wave around or if he will be put back 1 lap down. I think they're going to let him go around.
Because what happened was the green flag did fly, but then iRacing officials quickly threw the caution again. So this is technically caution number 3 that we're now going to be working here because of that. And actually, I think in doing that, that might move Chris Noblet to the race lead.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what the officials will do here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to work because my concern is what is going to happen with the 2 because it looks like he's going to fall back in line behind the pace car, but he's going to get his lap back here because the race went green very briefly and he was able to launch around our race leader. You see him there. He's the first car behind the pace car. We've got lots of black flags being cleared right now, so there was obviously some sort of mix-up in the lineup. Looks like Takis is going to go back around the 2, which would put him back a lap down. So this is going to be another full cycle of pace laps here that we're gonna go through here, Carlos.
Yeah, I was about to point that out. Yeah, we're going to have to go through another round of it because the pace car, the green flag did come out, and now Daniels goes back around the 46. And it looks like I think they're going to give him his lap back.
Yeah, not sure about that call, but obviously that's what they feel is best, and that's what we'll go with. So we'll restart this one with 9 cars on the lead lap rather than the aforementioned 8 on the lead lap.
And because of this happening, the 4th through 8th have come down pit lane to get service again.
Yeah, I mean, again, why not, right? Top off on fuel and take advantage of all these pace laps because you're not going to lose a lot of spots. The worst you're going to fall back to now is 9th, so take advantage of the situation, especially if you were restarting originally back there in like 6th or 7th. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So they're going to take advantage of this situation and top up on tires and fuel.
You got to think that might play into our final. Should this one go green to the end, that could play into the final green flag pit stops that should come around lap 144, 145 or so, and those guys may be able to stretch it out a little further.
Yeah, and this is also helping the case. There's still no way they can make it to the end on fuel. They will have to come in and pit again. But this is it's making that final stint a lot shorter every lap we complete under yellow. So it's gonna make these guys race awfully hard after they come through and top off, or after they come through and complete their last pit stop, whether that's under green or under yellow. If we get another caution, though, here, Carlos, it's going to get awfully racy.
Yeah, we mentioned on one of our race breaks that, once it gets inside 30 laps and we have a yellow, these guys are really going to just start going really crazy to try and get every spot they can with points-wise, and, just race-wise as well. They want to race hard for a win. And with only 9 cars on the lead lap, that could play into as well. And then, of course, for the 2 guys that are the only cars off the lead lap, they're going to be racing hard to get back on the lead lap towards the end of this thing, because the trend has been today, when green flag pit stops happen, a caution usually follows right there at the end.
Yeah, and it's really hurt a lot of guys, because I look at the scoring column right now, and we've got 9 cars on the lead lap, but then we've only got 2 cars 1 lap down. So it's a 2-car race for the lucky dog. And then you have the 33 of Chris Jones in 12th, 2 laps down. He's the only car 2 laps down. Then everybody else is 3 laps down, 4 laps down, and 3 cars are 7 laps down. So the cautions under green flag cycles have not helped those guys that have fallen behind in this race. They've only it's only hurt them, because they've lost laps under the cycle and they haven't been able to get them back. So they might be praying for some yellows here, some quick yellows, so they're able to take the gamble and stay out and get the waiver rounds. But I think it's going to be awfully racy between our top 9, and for that lucky dog spot between Chris Ritchie and Chris Wilson.
I want to point out Chris T. Jones. He was running inside the top 10 earlier on, and then just got caught up in a lot of trouble. That's got him set back in 12th. I want to give a big shout out to him. He's the guy that puts on this series for these guys, so, and allows us to be able to bring it to you, to your homes, to your laptops, to your phones. So you got to give a big shout out to this guy, Chris T. Jones, running in the 12th position right now in his number 33 old Chris car. For got to thank him for putting on such just a great series, and being able to come on with him for the full length for the majority of the races this season here on the Flat Out Racing Network. So it's an absolute pleasure to bring it to you guys. As the guys I think they'll be lining up here 2 by 2, and we'll get ready to go back green here as the pace car lights, they go out, and we'll go back green with just over 60 laps to go.
One thing to take note of here, Carlos, is on that last, had we have gone green on that last quote-unquote caution, although this is all technically one big caution, but had we have gone green when they threw the green flag briefly, there was a clump of about 8 to 10 lapped cars between Chris Takis and Chris Noblet, and then it was the 3 and the 25 of Morrison Tate. Now we've got the entire top 10 lined up in the correct order there. The top 7 maybe, that are all the way from Takis to Personette. So this is going to be a pretty wild restart up at the front now.
Yes, Christopher Reese and Chris Luke Daniels may have had EOL penalties, and they're going to start end of the longest line. So the top 7, Christopher Takis, Chris Noblet, Christopher Morse, Christopher Tate, Chris Bass, Chris Otto, and Chris Joshua Personette are all going to be right here together here on the restart here of working our technical third caution, but I guess caution in 2 and 3 can be lumped together, as we'll go back green with 60 laps to go. Takis already on the gas, green flag back in the air, and Christopher Tate, he may try to take Noblet and Morse here 3 wide, but thinks better of it as they head down into 1.
Great jump from Takis there. He wanted to get away, build himself a gap to the 3 and the 25. A fantastic restart for Tate. He's all over the back bumper of Morse, though, as they come off of turn 2 and start the run down into turn number 3.
He'll make the move to the inside of the 3 here. Remember, Christopher Tate's got really, really good short run speed, but the thing is, Takis and Morse, they have good long run speed. So it's fairly even between these guys, but Tate, he's going to try and get all he can right now, our 3-time winner this season, as he continues to go and run down the 46 of Christopher Takis as they head towards the back straightaway.
Yeah, he powered by Morse in 3 and 4 there, and he's going to look to do the same. Might have kissed the wall ever so slightly off of 2, but that didn't slow any of his momentum. He's got a good run into 3 on the 46.
46 of Christopher Takis continuing to hold serve, though, as the top 4, you can throw them under a blanket. Takis, Tate, Morse, and the 97 of Chris Bass, as Bass is trying to close up on the 3 here. Personette has been able to work his way up into 5th, as Noblet's not showing the speed he wishes he could be showing right now. He's about 5/10 slower than the rest of these leaders here. Personette, though, he is the definite quickest of these guys right now, as he's going to go to the outside of Bass here to try and pass him for 5th. Or fourth, excuse me.
It's a bold move, but it looks like he might make it work. He's got to be careful coming off of 4. It's going to get real tight and makes it stick. I think he's going to complete the pass going into turn number 2 here, and he absolutely does. What a move from Chris Personette in that 26 machine.
He's going to come up right to the back bumper of the 3 of Christopher Morse. Man, there's something fast right now in the 26 of Chris Personette, as the 3 will now dive back to the inside of Christopher Tate to try and make the pass there. Couldn't quite close it there, and now he could fall into the clutches of Personette. But now Morse had another good run on the exit of 4, and he'll try to get back to the inside of Tate, and he's there.
Really good run off of 4 and was able to capitalize on those little tri-oval kinks, the cookie cutter tri-oval, and Personette's going to fall right in line behind the 3, try and take advantage of that and make a move going into turn number 3, but it looks like the 25 Christopher Tate's going to shut the door for the time being.
Top 3 nose to tail, as now Personette's going to try again and use the outside line to his advantage. Couldn't quite close it there, but he might have a run here through the cookie cutter portion of the racetrack and try to get around the 25. Man, Personette has got some good speed under that 26 right now, as he's been in the top 10 mostly all day long, but he hasn't really been up front, and now we see it happening for him up here at the front, closing in on 54 laps to go.
I think he's finally showing his speed now that he's in a position to do something with it. He's finally showing what he's made of, and he's taking advantage of it. He's going to try and look for that good run off of 3 here. Not quite going to get it.
So he's trying to get her up to the 25 here, as Christopher Morse is going to dive into the inside of Christopher Takis here for the race lead and try and get that lead back from the 46. That is going to open the door for the 25 and the 26 to close up, as they're still side by side down the back straight.
46 took a really wide line into 1 and 2, and that opened up the door for Tate, and the 25 really holding him tight off of 4.
Oh man, Takis, they're going to be 3 wide, I think, here, going down into turn number 1. Christopher Tate, what a move by the 25.
Not done yet, though. Christopher Morris, sorry, I drew a blank. It's caught up in the battle. Morris holding strong on the top side, and here comes Takis with him, gives him a shot getting into turn 3.
He's going to try and maybe stick it to the outside of Morse there, but move Christopher Tate to the lead after all of that happening between Takis and Morse, but Morse isn't quite done yet, and Takis is going to try and help him on the outside.
Yeah, he's coming right back on that top. It seems to be pulling quite a bit here late into the run. Morse going to try and make it work. He might get a little bit of a run off of 2, but Takis isn't going to let him use it to his advantage. Maybe he will. Tate throws the block down the straightaway into 3.
What a major league block by Christopher Tate there into the corner. And all of this happening just ahead of Chris Joshua Personette. And he had to get out of the gas there to try and not hit the 46. So he might fall into the clutches of Chris Bass here, who's right inside this battle. But the battle continues between our 3 leaders. Near contact between the 3 and the 25.
No harm, no foul, but it's going to kill the momentum of Morse in the 3, and it's going to allow Takis to go by underneath, and it's going to allow Tate to pull away slightly. Takis goes through the second.
Takis into the second position. The 3 falls back to third. This is allowing also Chris Bass and Chris Otto, who also are showing some good speed right now. Chris Otto last time was the fastest car on the racetrack. They are all closing in, so the top 6 is all going to be right here. And with how the tire fall off here is, all these guys should still be running just about the same speed when it comes later into the run, as we're at 50 to go.
But the advantage that Bass and Otto have right now is that these guys are racing hard, battling for position. Those 2 can just kind of roll through the corners, take care of the tires, and when these guys settle down, they'll be able to pick them off one by one because they'll have fresher rubber. These guys are going to burn all 4 of their tires up in this battle here that we keep seeing, as we see Morris go by Takis again for second, and he's got his sights set on the lead again, once again with Christopher Tate.
If I'm Takis here, I maybe just ride behind Morse right now and then allow him to catch the 25 as he gives him a major shot into the corner there, man. Right on the bumper of the 3, and that actually killed his own momentum, as Personette may be able to pounce on him for third.
No holds barred between these top 3. We saw the 3 get into the 25, and just then the 46 get into the 3. So these guys are not afraid to use the bumpers, try and give themselves every bit of an edge. Look at the run that the 3 cars got through 1 and 2 up to the 25.
I told you, Christopher Tate, he's got really good short run speed, but the tire fall off is starting to show for the 25 as the 3 dives to the inside here. May try to bring Takis with them as move the 3 of Christopher Morse back to the point. Yes, sir. He is clear back into the lead as they cross the line with 47 laps to go, but Tate almost got down in the grass to try to make the crossover move.
He clipped it just a little bit. You saw him get squirrely going to 1, and that shot Takis to the outside. Here he comes with the run off of 2.
Side by side for the second position, happening right behind Christopher Morse, just ahead of the 26 of Personette. Takis trying to use that middle groove there to get around the 25. Just cleared them there through 3 and 4. I thought he was going to take the nose off the 25, but now move the 3 back to the lead and move the 46 back into second, a familiar sight we've been used to be seeing all day long. And I wouldn't be surprised now if the gap is going to start to grow as these two look to be the fastest ones on track.
Yeah, these two have been the dominant cars all race long, and they're going to open up that gap. Whoa, Bass got really loose off of 2, but he's going to take advantage of it as he's going to go to the inside of Personette entering 3, move him up to the 4th position. A good move from Bass, taking advantage of a little bit of a moment off of 2.
Yeah, he got really squirrely there on the exit of 2, but he was able to keep it going as this is now turned into 2 succinct packs of 3 cars of Morse, Takis, and Tate, and Personette, Bass, and Chris Otto, excuse me. As Morse continues to lead, but I think Tate may have just scrubbed the wall there on the exit of 2.
Just to give you all an update on the rest of the pack, there's not much going on back there. That's why we're so focused on this top 6 right now. Everybody behind them seems to be all single file for the most part. No real big battles going on in the back of the pack. It's all up at the front here right now.
I'm looking on this here. It's about half of a racetrack between, as we're going to have a battle for second here between Takis and Tate. That's close.
Man.
That is very close there down the back straightaway. As I was saying, it's almost a full straightaway between the race leader, Christopher Morse, and then the car that's the last car on the lead lap, Chris Luke Daniels, who's not showing the speed that he had earlier on in the race. So I don't know if they're going to catch him by the time the fuel and tires start to wear off again, but we'll have to see as Takis was able to get some gap between him and Morse again. Or excuse me, between him and Tate.
Yeah, and on likewise with Morse and Takis able to grow that gap out. Morse is still able to open that up because Takis has got his hands full with that 25 machine. He hasn't gone away just yet. And we see Tate with another good run through 3 and 4. Takis came off the bottom a little bit. He's going to look to the inside. He's going to have to block to that inside. Nope, he's going to open up the door and let Tate go by. A little bit loose getting in the 1 is Takis. He's going to fight back on that top groove.
Side by side, door to door as they head down the back straightaway here. Takis trying to get that run on the high side down the back stretch, and he'll clear Tate once again. But this is all playing into the hands of our leader, Christopher Morse. As these guys continue to battle, the further he'll be able to get away.
The longer we get into the runs here, Carlos, the more that top seems to pull whenever you're in a battle with another car. It's just you're able to get that run off the corner because the guy on the bottom has to lift to stay off the guy on the top, and we see Tate kind of tune into that fact, and he's going to try and look to the outside, but he wasn't close enough to really take advantage of it.
As they head down the back straightaway, when they come to the line, it'll be 40 laps to go tonight here at Texas as Tate now starts to fall back into the hands of the 97 of Chris Bass, and I'm starting to look at Chris Joshua Personette. I guess he's another one of those cars, as he's in 6th now, that has the really good short run speed, but not very good long run speed, as he's one of those guys that pitted with Bass and Otto under our extended caution, if you will, and now the tires are starting to fall off on the 26.
Yeah, and it could be something as simple as him maybe just backing off and slowing his pace a little bit and maybe letting the race come to him. We could see him lurk back up into this group later on in the run, but as you mentioned, the 25 really starting to fall off now as the 97 has just gone by him, and Chris Otto is going to take him into his clutches here in the next couple corners, next couple laps.
See, oh man, I thought he was going to try and get him right there, get to the inside of the 25. Couldn't quite close the deal there, but this group now is starting to get away there. So, oh man, Tate really ran Otto down the racetrack there on the back straightaway, but Otto's now going to try and get to the inside here.
Oh, Otto watched a little bit there. Tate moved up to give him the room.
Otto yeah, that really killed the momentum that Tate and Otto were having to keep up with Bass, but Bass now has his sights set on the 46 of Christopher Takis now, as this gap between Morse, Takis, and Bass has grown to almost a full second. If Takis is able to keep him close enough, they're going to be running up on the lap traffic here, as it's about a turn and a half, the gap between the 3 and the 2 and the 7. So you got to think that lap traffic may play a factor here, as these guys are quite not yet to the pit window.
Yeah, lap traffic always has the element of playing a role in any race and slowing the leaders down a little bit, but we haven't seen that come into play too much this afternoon. We've seen guys be pretty lenient there whenever they've got the leader in their mirror, and they've done a good job of pulling over and letting them by. So I'm not too sure that it will be that big of a factor, but we'll just have to wait and see. As you said, Chris Bass working, on the 46 of Chris Takis, and we were talking about it at the top of the show here, Carlos. Is Chris Bass he's maybe found that speed late into the run, and he's trying to put together a really solid effort here today.
You're absolutely right. Bass is just, he's been very close to victories this season. He hasn't been able to quite pull it off just yet this season. He has an average finish of 9th. And he finds himself 10th in points right now. He's about 3 points ahead of Christopher Papa, who didn't really have a good afternoon today, as he's back in 19, so he's going to be able to gap him. And then he'll be able to probably get ahead of Chris Clifford Corvo, as Corvo is on the racetrack in 20th. And then Hubka didn't have a really good day, but a good enough day to maybe able to maintain his position. So Chris Bass should be able to move up in the points up into 9th, but a win today, I think, is what he wants to see.
Absolutely, but I think that 3 car is it's far too strong right now. I mean, we see him continue to open up that gap over Takis, and Takis has slowly opened up the gap on Chris Bass. So I think that 46 and the 3 are just too strong for the rest of the field right now, especially late into the run. They've got something figured out that the rest of the field is kind of missing, and I think that's going to be the difference here this afternoon.
These guys continue to wheel it around. 34 laps to go here in this race. I was thinking in my head just now, as Chris Otto's been able to work his way up into the 4th position now. Christopher Tate, he has arguably had the best car tonight on the short run. If a caution were to come out, as he's actually going to bring it down pit lane here before the green flag window opens, this is an interesting move by Tate. I was going to mention, if he gets a caution with about 20 laps to go or so, he could have the car to win, because I've noticed that the car doesn't start to fall off until about 20 laps into the run. So, but I'm not sure why he's come down pit lane now.
Yeah, this would put him at about 36 laps to the end of this thing. So I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it's a tad bit early, but I mean, again, we'll just see how this fares, what the leaders decide to do here as well. So, interesting call from the 25. We'll see how that works out for him here.
I'm trying to find the leader, as the 3 I think is getting mixed in with lap traffic right now. That is the case. He's getting into lap traffic right now, so we'll go back to the leader, Christopher Morse. They just cleared the 2 to put him a lap down. Tate, the good thing for him, he stayed 1 lap down, so he should cycle out well, as actually he's moved up into the 9th spot, as Chris Luke Daniels has brought it down pit road. The gap between Morse and Takis has shortened a little bit, almost a full second. It was about a second and 2/10 earlier. So Takis able to maintain good speed and keep up with him somewhat, as he's been able to shake off.
Coming in now. Looks like he's bringing it down pit road now, bringing it down really early in comparison to the rest of his stops.
Yeah, I'm not certain as to why these guys decided to shorten the pit run. Regardless, they're going to be okay in terms of having to come back down again, but because this run will get them to the finish. Also in the pits is lap car Christopher Ritchie. They're the only 2 right now in pit road, as is the 19 of Christopher B. Williams, but doing that has handed the lead over to Christopher Takis for the time being. And as we've mentioned again, Chris Bass, Chris Otto, and Chris Joshua Personette, they are all on the same pit sequence. Christopher Reese just a little bit earlier than them in the 5th spot. So they're going to be able to stay out a bit longer than these guys will.
I think the reason we're seeing the cycle be so much shorter is they want to give themselves a reasonable distance on these tires. So right now they've got about 34, 33 laps to the end on this set of tires. I think if they wait until they're running out of fuel to come into pit, they'll only be looking at about 15 laps or maybe even 10 laps to the end, and I think that's just too long of a run. Chris Tack is really hot coming in the pit road. That could be detrimental to him. He was clocked at about 65. I clocked him at about 65 hitting that cone coming down the pit road. It'll be interesting to see if he's hit with a penalty for that. He had the brakes locked up about 4 boxes into the pits.
Yeah, I saw. We had him focused there as he really locked them up coming into the pits. I don't think he realized how hot he was coming in when he came off the racing surface. That is huge for the 46. I'm going to keep it on him here for a little bit as he spins it coming out of spins the tires a bit coming out of the pits. He cycles to 5th for the time being. He is ahead of Christopher Morse on the racetrack. So I'm trying to find him here. He's coming up now to him. You just saw him there at the top of your screen. So he's trying to hold him off here. Here comes Morse as Takis is trying to get up to speed, but Morse is definitely going to be quicker here. They're going to be side by side as they run through the corner here. Takis doesn't have to make a motion to pit road.
I think he got away with that, Carlos, and that was, man, he was clocked he was at least 12 over coming into the pits, and I think that's a lucky break for that 46. He came in hot. He got away with it, though, as he's battling with the 3. This is the battle for the lead here, essentially.
Yeah, because Chris Bass and Chris Otto have not come down to pit road, but I do want to point out one thing. Christopher Tate is up in the 3rd spot, and he pit way before all of these guys, and he's ahead now of Morse and Takis.
Yeah, he's got his lap back. He's back on the lead lap. We'll see where he's at on track. He's now coming. He's on the back straightaway, so I think the 3 and the 46 should get their laps back this time as they continue to battle, almost touching down the back straightaway.
Takis takes the spot.
I think pitting super early allowed Chris Tate to really chart. Whoa, they almost run over Chris Otto coming off of 4. The 46 did. Nearly ran over the 88 and the 97 as they came in the pit road. Those are the leaders now, so the 46 and the 3 back on the lead lap, but you're right. Chris Tate is going to cycle out to be our race leader, I think, and he's straightaway ahead of the 46 and 3.
That was a very bold pit move by Christopher Tate to pit so early and then play the strategy into his hands as those guys as Otto and Bass are still in the pits getting service. So Tate is the leader. Chris Takis and Chris Morse should cycle around to 2nd and 3rd. I don't know what the timing will be. We'll see here next time by, or whenever they do cross the line, as to how far away they'll be from Tate and from Christopher Tate with 24 to go.
Tate's coming off of turn 4 now, and Takis is also coming off of turn 4 right now, so it's about a half straightaway. Going to cycle out through here this time by.
4.5 seconds is the gap between Tate and Takis, and they look to be trying to close that gap a little bit as the time, I'm watching the gap here, it's starting to lessen pretty quickly as they head down the back.
Yeah, so if this stays green to the end, the advantage lies to the 46 and the 3. It's just a matter of if do they have enough time to make the most of their tires to catch the 25. Now, the catch 22 is these two cannot burn their stuff up early into this run trying to catch that 25. Their tires are about 5 to 6 laps fresher than the 25, so over due course, if they maintain their pace, they will catch him. But if they burn their stuff up early into this run, it's game over, and the 25 wins this race.
Just want to throw it out there, too. We may not be done with caution flags yet. We've had 2 tonight, an extended one being caution number 2. We may not be done with that yet, as we're inside 30 laps to go. That was our window of when a caution would come out. Things would start getting a bit rowdy amongst the leaders. As I want to point out, Christopher Takis is really hauling right now. He has cut the gap almost to 2 seconds right now as he heads around lap traffic. He is coming in a hurry. So is Christopher Morse.
Yeah, and that's just the natural pace of these guys with the tire difference, and they're not pushing by any stretch of the imagination. They're just running their race right now. and it's the fresh tires allowing that gap to close. Now, it should balance out late into the run when their tires start to fall off. It all depends on how good of a job Tate's done managing his tires, and is he able to keep that speed up. He's got the 44 Chris Hubka, or excuse me, the 5 Chris Hubka right behind him, scored 4 laps down. But Tack is continuing to close in. He's even closer now in 3 and 4. We'll see what the gap is at the line, because he is there.
He is coming in a hurry right now. He's opened up a gap of a second over Christopher Morse. Morse is also gaining as well, I should mention as well. So Tate, his tire, that move may not have paid off as well as he wanted it to. As Takis is coming, he'll get to the inside of the 5 here, and he'll be right there with the 25 as they head down into turn number 3.
Yeah, he's gonna run over him almost getting into 3. I don't think that Takis expected Tate to hold the bottom entering 3, but we see him look to the inside here. He's gonna lead the lap just barely. Takis back to the point.
Christopher Takis, our winner from Charlotte. He is a 2-time winner this season as he takes the lead away from Christopher Tate. With 18 laps to go, Christopher Morse is about 1.2 seconds behind, and that gap is going to grow as Takis' fresh tires come into play here. But as this run continues, the tire will start to fall off for the 46, but by then the gap may just be too big.
Yeah, but we've compared to the 3, the 3 compared between the 3 and the 46, the 3 has been better in the long runs here, Carlos. So it's just a matter if he's able to stay close enough to really take advantage of the tire differential. And wow, got really close with the 71 there. The 46 did down the back straightaway.
As they can now start to work, as he starts to work the lap traffic, Christopher Tate is going to fall into the clutches of Christopher Morse, our guy who has been really dominant tonight in the Chris Wrench number 3. The 3 should be able to pass the 25, and then he can set his sights on the 46 of Takis. But that gap is really widening as it's about a second and almost a full 2 seconds back to these guys as they continue to as they're going to be doing battle here shortly.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, there we see Morse going by the 25 pretty easily there, almost as if he was standing still. So Tate's tires have certainly fallen off over the course of this run. It's just a question as if does Morse have enough pace in that machine to run down Takis like we've seen him do over the course of the run. Now that he's got pretty much clean racetrack ahead of him, that's all he's going to be focused on right now.
Watching the numbers here, it's holding steady at about almost 2 seconds as the gap is now actually starting to widen because Takis, he's got clean racetrack in front of him as well. The next lap car to him is the 4, our points leader of Chris M. Scott. It's about a half straightaway away. So pending on the speed under that 4 car, you got to think if that lap traffic is going to come into play and that could allow Morse to catch. But the times between them are staying at about a 10th. Takis is about a 10th quicker than Morse, and then 4/10ths quicker than Tate. So for Morse and Tate, and then guys like Chris Bass, Chris Otto, Chris Personette, and then guys on the tail end of the lead lap, Reese and Noblet, if they want a shot at it, they're going to need a yellow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the gap just continues to open up now. It's over 2 seconds. I don't think Morse quite had the speed coming out of pit road as Takis did. Remember, Morse did pit sooner than Takis, so it could just come down to something as much as tires. So maybe staying out late here was the play. Certainly seems to be that way as Takis just continues to open up that gap. It's now 2.2 seconds, and it's going to be larger here at the line this time by.
Takis comes on the line. It'll put 12 laps to go on the board here tonight at Texas. He has just been he's been patient tonight in having to deal with Christopher Morse just absolutely dominating the first half and then the opening part of the second half of this race. The gap between them is about 2 seconds and a tenth as Takis continues to try and drive away from him as there's a puff of tire smoke there. Turns 3 and 4. Looks like someone may have locked up the brakes there as Takis comes down. Puts 11 laps to go on the board right now. As I just want to go through here. Again, I'm going to give a call to Chris Personette. He's been running really well tonight up in the 6th position. Same for guys like Christopher Reese and Chris Noblet, guys that we don't typically get to see up at the front of these things running inside the top 10 on the tail end of the lead lap. So that's really good for these guys to have good runs. in the 7th and 8th position. And then you see Christopher Ritchie right there in the 9th position. He's having a good run tonight after his solid run at Watkins Glen last week, so another top 10 is in the works for him. And then Chris Luke Daniels, he's held on to the car tonight, and he's possibly and should be able to salvage out a 10th place finish tonight. As 10 laps to go is on the board, Christopher Takacs continues to wheel it around Logan and is looking pretty set for the victory.
Yeah, he's got a pretty green racetrack in front of him here. Not a whole lot of lap traffic ahead of him. There is a battle between Noblet and Chris Luke Daniels that is for position. No, it's not for position. I apologize. But they're... Oh! Triple in turn one. It's the 2. And the 17. Caution is out.
Oh my goodness, you were just talking about them, the 17 and the 2, and they have brought out essentially our 4th caution of the night, and that is not what Christopher Takacs wants to see.
Right as I clicked over to cover that battle for, wasn't even for a position, the 2 just, I'm not sure if he thought he was clear of the 17 or what, but the hole closed up entering 1, and they came together and both hit hard.
Well, this changes everything.
Yeah, to say the least.
We'll go back and we'll take a look and see what happened between the 17 and the 2. We were just talking about them having great runs tonight, and then that battle started to happen between them, and then it just did not work anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if the 17 thought maybe that the 2 was going to just lift getting into 1 because he was off the lead lap and let him go, but the 17, it's just a matter of 2 guys going for the same place on the racetrack. Honestly, Carlos, they came together entering 1, and they both pounded the outside wall.
Oh my goodness, the 2 catching some air there going into turn 1, and yeah, they just got together. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, they were both going for the same spot on the racetrack, and there was just no room there. So that right there, that is why we're working our 4th caution of the night. Chris Luke Daniels and Chris Noblet getting together just on the tail. Noblet on the tail end of the lead lap, and Chris Luke Daniels, one of the cars 1 laps down. And that has really thrown a monkey wrench into this whole thing now for our leaders.
Yeah, and the one guy who's ecstatic is Christopher Tate, because we know what kind of short run speed he has. Christopher Morse has had just good all-around speed, as has the 46. But one guy I want to focus on and draw a red circle around, Carlos, it's that 97 Chris Bass. We've seen him on restarts throughout this season. We know how aggressive he gets on these restarts. Today is going to be no different. I bet you he goes for it here hard on this restart, and he could come out with the lead in one of these corners.
You see him right there in the 4th spot. You know, Chris Otto, he's shown good speed tonight. And then, of course, Chris Joshua Personette as well. He had that really, really good run, and he was about to maybe get a set of sights set on the lead. But then the tires started to fall off here. These guys have all come down to pit road again to get service. And in all of this, the lucky dog is going to be the, I believe, the 35 of Christopher Ritchie. So that's going to put him back on the lead lap, as Chris Noblet and Chris Luke Daniels were the cars set for that, but they wrecked battling for it. So Christopher Ritchie is going to be back on the lead lap in the 8th spot, so he's not out of it yet either.
Chris Noblet, I think, was on the lead lap when the caution came out, so I think he's still going to retain his spot on the lead lap, and there's going to just now be there's going to be 9 cars on the lead lap now. I think he was scored 8th last car on the lead lap when that caution came out.
So settle into the 9th position, I believe, after this, because he fell on a lap down due to having to come down to pit road and did not beat the pace car out of the pit lane. So he may get the benefit of the doubt and still come out with the lead lap in 9th. We'll have to see. As you see, Christopher Takacs here. I'm sure definitely in the mic right now he is verbally pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, that race was all but won. For that 46. I was watching the gap between him and the 3, and it was closing a little bit, but just it wasn't closing fast enough that I think the 3 could have caught him, but he wouldn't have had enough time to get around him, I don't think, because it's one thing to catch a guy and another thing to pass him. But wipe the slate clean, and we'll have 8 cars that are ready to duke it out here, all of which have shown decent speed. Some of them we haven't really talked about, mainly the 62 Christopher Reese. We really haven't focused too much on him. He's kind of just been lurking around there in that top 10, top 5. He's going to restart 7th. Any one of these guys can win it, really, because if they get aggressive in this on this restart, something could happen in 1 and 2, and somebody way back there could go through to the lead. So this is just, we saw how wild that last restart was, and there was 60 laps to go. So this is going to be with about, shoot, this might even be a natural green-white checkered here, Carlos. So this is going to be a very wild restart.
You know, I don't know if we will get to that point, as when they cross the line, it'll be 5 laps to go. I think we'll go back green with 4 to go, I believe. Okay. I'm not quite certain. It may be closer to 3 laps to go when we get back to the green here. We'll have to see here when they come around. But regardless, this is going to be one heck of a finish. And, you know, we're glad you, those of you still watching, we're glad you stuck it out with us as the pace car legs look to be out, as the guys will take their wave around and they'll get some of their laps back, as we'll have 8 cars to settle it. Christopher Takis in first, Christopher Morse in second, Christopher Tate third, Chris Bass fourth, Chris Joshua Personette fifth, Chris Otto sixth, Chris Otto's fifth, and then Personette is sixth, Reese in seventh, and then Christopher Ritchie, our last car on the lead lap, who will restart tail end of the longest line as the lucky dog in 8th. Oh boy, Logan, this is about to get very exciting.
Yeah, get up off your seats and tighten up those belts, because it's going to be wild. There's a lot of guys here that are hungry for a win, and they're going to take advantage of this opportunity. Mainly that 25.
That 25, he has shown very good speed on these short runs here, and he's going to have the shortest of all short runs here. He's definitely the favorite here, but don't count out that 97. He's been very good on restarts this season. The front 7 will be all right up here, and this battle, 4 laps to settle it tonight in the Chris Auto Parts 400. Green flag in the air. Takis, another good restart. He had that last time, but, you know, the guys caught him. So this is going to be very interesting to see as he really opens up the lead there.
But it just means it's fewer laps that he's got to battle side by side. Tate makes an awesome move on the 3 to get by him, but the 3 looks back to the inside, getting a push from Personette going out on the turn number 3. Tate throwing the block. He's going to hold the position for now, and is going to be able to run down Takis in that 46 for the lead.
If I'm Morse, I just wait a little bit. Let Tate and him catch the 46. That way the 46 becomes a sitting duck, and that's exactly what's happening. Caution is out. And we're going to have green-white checkered overtime in Texas.
The 44, they threw a big wreck on the front straightaway. The 2 hit hard. He's got a wheel flopping around.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but I think you were right in that call, because we saw the 3 pushing the heck out of the 25 down the front straightaway. I think that's exactly what was going to happen, but it's we're going to rack them up and try again here.
We'll go ahead and take a look back and see what brought out our 5th caution of the evening. The 44 of Christian Shepard, Luke Daniels also involved.
The 7 took a wild ride there, Carlos. He gets loose off of 4, overcorrects it, and then gets up on the fence.
So you'll see the 7 here as they come through the corners. Yep, got loose just in front of Ritchie, the guy that just got back on the lead lap. Wow, what a ride for the 7. And then you see other cars flying in. Man, this was a big one. Whoa, one car, the 33 of Chris T. Jones. He went flying. We're going to have to take a couple looks at this.
Yeah, when you get a wreck off of turn 4 here at Texas, the track narrows up really close, especially in that little left-hand kink and the cookie cutter. The track gets so narrow, and you have no choice but to either just brake and let the wreck happen or throw it through the grass, and nobody's really in a position to do that. The 98 tries to get down low and runs into the 2, and then the track just gets blocked. There's just nowhere for these guys to go.
Yeah, you saw it there, and then you'll see the 33 fly into your picture here. Oh my goodness, almost went up and over. That actually took the back bumper of the 98 off of him. The whole spoiler fell off that machine. Christopher Landy back here. Chris M. Scott, our points leader, I think slowed up in time to avoid it, but about a 6-7 car wreck here on the front straightaway, and that is what has put us under essentially our 5th caution of the night, and we're going to be heading into overtime now here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, and it's going to be just as crazy, but, you know, Takis is playing these restarts right. He needs to do the exact same thing that he did on this last restart, get out in front of the group here, and then they only really have 1 lap to catch him. but you gotta, if you're restarting second, if you're Chris Tate, you have to anticipate that. You have to anticipate that he goes early. Yeah, it might catch you out, but you just have to do it. That's what you have to do on this restart.
I believe the lucky dog should be the 9 of Chris Chad Wilson, but I don't know if he was involved in the wreck, and that would null and void him being getting the lucky dog spot. So for the time being, we still have 8 cars on the lead lap. Christopher Ritchie, despite being involved in that wreck, maintains his spot, and he'll sit in 7th now. So with no lucky dog being the case here, the top 8 are all going to be clustered together here in the first 4 rows.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that was eligible for the lucky dog was involved in that wreck, so there's no wave around here this time, and it's just the top 8 up at the front of the pack, and they're going to be the top 8 restarting this race.
Now, if I remember correctly, I believe we have 2 attempts at a green-white checker here here tonight.
Yes, correct. Yep, we got 2 attempts at the green-white checkered. So if they don't if the leader does not make it around to take the white flag before a caution comes out, they'll throw the yellow, they'll rack them up, and they'll try it one more time. Should we get to the second green-white checkered, the next flag will end the race, whether it be caution or checkered.
So the way they'll line it up here, as the pace car lights are still on, which means we'll go around at least one more time. Christopher Tackis the leader, Christopher Tate now in second, Morse third, Chris Personette in fourth, Chris Bass fifth, Christopher Reese sixth, Christopher Ritchie seventh, and Chris Otto, the last car on the lead lap, in eighth. The rest of the top 10 is Chris Chad Wilson in ninth in the 9 car, and then 10th will be Chris Noblet with Chris T. Jones, the last car on the lead lap. In 11th, man, it has been a lot of fun tonight, and I think we're in for a lot more here in these final 2 laps. And you touched on it a minute ago. Tackis, this is going to be the restart where he needs to do what he's been doing all day long, is get a really good jump and let the guys race behind him, and he should cruise on to a victory. But should he not get a good restart here, he might be in trouble, as the pace car lights are still on, and we'll go around another time.
Yeah, and like I was saying too, if you're Chris Tate, you need to be on your toes and anticipating the early restart from the 46, because that's all he's done when he's been leading on these restarts. He's been getting that jump so he can be by himself. If you're Chris Tate, you've only got 2 laps to get it done. If he gets out to that big lead again, he will not have time to get him back and pass him for this win. So he's got to take the risk and anticipate the jump and kind of go in relatively the same area that Chris Tackis has been going in, and make sure he stays with him going into 1, or at least on his bumper going into 1.
Yeah, you're right. If there's any sort of 2-3 car length gap, he's going to only have about a lap to try and run down the 46. These guys running the same sponsors, the National Chris colors, 46, a little bit different color scheme, the 25 replicating the Casey Mears colors from 2007 when he won at Charlotte in the Coke 600 and what was at the time the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series. So these guys definitely, it's very fitting for these two to be up at the front here with the same scheme and with how well they've been running today, especially on the short runs, and it's definitely going to be an exciting one. I believe the pace car light should come out this time by, and we'll go back green at lap 171, about 4 laps over the limit. If this all plays out right, we'll finish 5 laps over the scheduled distance this evening. Logan, this is about to get really, really exciting, and I'm not going to be surprised if we have to rack them up again.
Yeah, I mean, my heart's pounding, and I'm just up here calling it, so I can't imagine what's going through these guys' minds right here now, but it's just all going to come down to the restart. Everybody's got to make sure they stay with that 46, because if he gets out to that big lead again like he's been doing all afternoon, the race is over in terms of winning it is concerned. They're not going to be able to have time to catch him, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a 1.5-mile course, so there's not a lot of time. You know, if this is Daytona or Talladega, of course you're going to have a heck of a lot of time to run them down, because at those tracks you're definitely a sitting duck. But here it's a little bit shorter, and with how the front stretch is, that it also can curve off speed. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Tackis, Tate, Morse, Personette, and Bass will be the top 5 when we get back to green. Will Tackis get that good jump that he's gotten all night long? Can Tate anticipate it as well? It has all come down to this. 2 laps to settle it. Pace car will make the hard left-hand turn into the pits. Tackis on the gas again. He didn't get as good of a jump as I thought he was going to, but Tate and Morse are going to be side by side here in the 1, and Tackis is gone.
I think it's going to be just enough, because Morse has got to clear Tate off of 2, otherwise his race is done. There's just no chance at it here, and it looks like he's going to do it. but he's going to have Bass fighting on his inside. That's exactly what Takis wants in the mirror. There's the block thrown from the 3. 97 tried to get there. Okay, he's got a chance now. Here comes Morse.
Morse is coming. Takis a sitting duck. Morse, the guy that's been dominant all night. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go in Texas. This is going to settle it.
White flag is out. This race is official. Here comes Morse. Great run into 1. Is he going to get the run off of 2? He's got to get underneath him here, getting into 3.
He's going to try and put it to the outside down the back straightaway. Tries to cross over. Dives to the bottom. Takis tries to throw the block. He's going to turn him. He's going to turn him. And Chris Bass, they wreck. Chris Bass, he has finally done it. He wins tonight here in Texas. Oh my goodness, what a finish.
Yes, that's such an ugly way for those two to end it, but the block thrown from the 46 down the back, and Chris Morse was not going to lift, and all power to him. He's going for the win, but it's so unfortunate for those two, but what a win for the 97. This is exactly what he needed.
Oh my goodness. You're exactly right. That's not how a race really should finish. That's unfortunate. Oh my goodness, for Christopher Morse and Chris Takis, the 2 dominant cars of the night. But how about Chris Bass? Right place, right time. As you see him and Otto there, as Otto's going to celebrate with him. Those two, they've been running well together all night. But Chris Bass, first win of the season for him, 10th in points. This is going to be big dividends for him, as he just fell into the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about. He's had so many good races where he's run up at the front. He's shown great speed, and he's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's gotten contact and put up into the wall, or just caught up in somebody else's mess. And it's the total opposite tonight. He's in the right place at the right time, position A, able to scoot by on the inside, coming off before. He led 1 lap. He led a quarter of a lap tonight here, Carlos, and it was the most important quarter of the lap. What a job from Chris Bass.
He stayed patient, and then he again, right place at the right time when the 46 and the 17 got together. We're going to quickly go back and see what exactly happened with the 46. You saw it on your screen, but you got to think, man, Morse and Takis really should not be happy with the 3 right now, as we'll show the entire final white flag lap.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're the 46, you're absolutely upset. You hate getting wrecked like that, especially coming to take the checkered. And after the race he put on, but at the same time, he threw a massive block down that back straightaway, Carlos, which is fine. No problem with that whatsoever. It's the white flag coming to the checkered. You're fighting for a win. There's no issue with that, but you can't expect the 3 to lift there when he's got his nose down there, and they were just holding each other so tight, and it was just bound to happen. They just hooked. They hooked, and they went both up into the fence, and unfortunately, that's just a sour end to a great day for both of those guys, but just a product of racing for the win on a green-white checkered.
I'm going to replay it one more time. I think the 3 car stepped out a little bit when he was on the inside of Takis, heading down the back straightaway when he made the move.
Yeah, he definitely walked up a little bit, but it's a product of having that shallow entry. I mean, he was down on the white line entering turn 3, so I thought maybe the initial contact was going to push the 46 up enough where the 3 could get by, but as you said, it was like the car just stepped out as soon as he made contact, and it sent them both up into the fence.
Here you see the remains of the 46 car of Christopher Takis, who arguably had one of the best cars all night long. He is going to finish it out in the 8th position. It's just an unfortunate end to his day. A guy that he just absolutely dominated this race, the back half of this race, and it's going to end up in vain for him tonight in the National Chris car.
But every gray cloud has a silver lining here, Carlos, and the silver lining is here. There were only 8 cars on the lead lap. So as you said, Morse is going to come home 6th, and Takis will come home last on the lead lap, which would be 8th. So it's not... You take away the fact that he dominated the race and led the most laps. It's not a horrendous finish for him despite what happened. But he's obviously going to be gutted. He had the fastest car by far today. Maybe not by far, but he and the 3 had the fastest cars by far. And they definitely deserve better than the finish they got. But it's just racing hard for the win, and that's the product of that sort of racing.
No, you're absolutely right. That's just how the race goes sometimes, and it's unfortunate for Takis and Morse, the 2 dominant cars of the night. But that's how the cookie falls. Sometimes we've been saying cookie cutter all night. That's just how the cookie crumbles most of the time. But Chris Bass is your race winner. Here's your full finishing results. Chris Bass winning it. Josh Personette second. Christopher Tate third, with Reese and Otto rounding out the top 5, and then Morse, Richie, Takis, Chris Chad Wilson, and Chris Noblet rounding out the top 10. You'll see the rest of your finishing order here this evening from the Texas Motor Speedway. We now get to hear from our guys who finished third, second, and first, and they're all ready to go. So we'll go ahead and bring in our third place finisher, Christopher Tate. Christopher Tate, this is Carlos Zimmerman and Logan Brakey in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing?
We're doing just fine, man. High drama to finish a race. Handedly tonight, you had probably one of the best cars on the short run, but you only end up getting third tonight. I'm sure you wanted that win. You played the fuel strategy early on that last green flag pit stop. So, what was your mindset throughout the last 30 laps of this thing?
I knew I wasn't as fast on the long runs, and whenever me and the 3 made contact racing for the lead, it actually gave me damage in my right rear. So it got way tighter, way faster. So I just tried pitting early to build up a gap to hopefully hold it, but that didn't happen. But I'm happy with where I finished.
Chris, you came in with a momentum after winning last week's race at Watkins Glen, and you try to carry that over to this afternoon's race. The 46 and the 3 were the class of the field all day long. Did you think that maybe playing the undercut card on the strategy there on that last green flag stop was going to be enough to give you the gap and the time to maybe sneak out a win here this afternoon?
I thought it was possible because I did that at Auto Club and it worked out. But I think with just how much faster the tires are falling off now, I think that definitely played a huge factor, and I'm sure I could have probably done a little bit better saving. But those 2 they were the class of the field, no doubt.
Now, I'm going to ask you now with the points not quite updated yet, but you came into this race 27 points behind Chris M. Scott. Chris M. Scott did not have a good run tonight. So with this third place run, you're definitely going to be able to close the gap on the points, as the gap between you guys, he finished 18th. So a 15 position difference. So you're definitely going to be sitting pretty for points. Going into the next week, what's going to be your mindset as we head to the big high banks of Talladega?
This was actually why I was wanting to really gain a lot of points, because I don't think I'm going to be able to make it next week.
Well, that's unfortunate, but you should still be sitting pretty in points on to the next race after that. But a third place run for you tonight, obviously a good run. Again, you had a great short run car tonight. Definitely nothing to be disappointed about for sure. Before we let you go this evening, do you have anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, definitely you guys. You guys are putting on a great broadcast. Chris Jones for putting on the Soul League, and that about does it.
By the way, I do want to let you know we did fix the audio issue with the engine, so you should be able to hear it when you play it back later this week. But Chris Tate, third place run for you tonight. Excellent run, and we won't see you at Talladega, but we hope to see you the week after that. Good run tonight.
All righty, thank y'all.
Alrighty, we will now talk to our second place finisher, Chris Josh Personette. Chris Josh Personette, this is Carlos Zimmerman and Logan Brakey in the broadcast booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, you started to show a lot of speed down the stretch there at the end of the things. The second to last one of the restarts earlier on in the race, you were really showing a lot of speed, and then you just happened to be right place, right time there at the end to pick up second place. What was your mindset through those last few laps and on those restarts?
Man, what a wild run. Really struggled with tire wear tonight. Didn't get any practice in, so I was trying to just make best of what I had. Second to last restart, I was lucky enough to get a good run, be able to get in the inside and get up to fourth. But coming to last restart, I knew it was going to be difficult to do anything because of starting on the outside. So I just tried my best to get down to the bottom, and then, like you said, right place, right time, was able to get by those two once they started wrecking, and was able to come home second.
Logan, you have a copy? There it is.
You had the second to last restart was pretty racy there between that top six. Did you maybe didn't quite have as much speed as maybe the top three, top four that were battling for it? So did you maybe consider did you have the idea at all to back off, save that right front, and maybe go at it later on in the run? Should it have stayed green to the end? And was that maybe your mindset throughout the whole race? I guess, how crucial was it to take care of that right front tire throughout the course of the race on this old Texas surface?
Oh, it was definitely crucial. I mean, by the end of the run, your tire was almost blown. So, on the short restarts, you have to get what you can while you can. And that late in a race, there's no point in trying to save tire. You just got to go for it.
No, absolutely. The time we knew the tire fall off was going to be a big factor tonight, and you saying that definitely all but confirms it. Going into Talladega next week, this is a big shift from a 1.5 mile course to the longest oval track on the NASCAR circuit. What is going to be your mindset going into a race like that? Are you going to take it like a Daytona race, or are you going to approach it a bit differently?
My mindset always on the play tracks is to be aggressive. I mean, I would rather get wrecked out being aggressive than just riding around in the back and getting wrecked by an accident that I can't slow up for. So, I'm gonna approach it as every other race, put myself in the best position all race long to try and win the race. And if I get wrecked out early because of a racing incident or whatever, because I'm racing for the lead, then so be it.
I believe that's going to really suit you well. You have shown a lot of speed as of late. I don't remember if you took the green flag at Daytona, but ever since you've been running in this series, you've done really, really well down the stretch in these races, the races that you don't get taken out of. So a second place run tonight, definitely nothing to be ashamed about, of course. Before we let you go this evening, anybody want to give a shout out to?
I just want to thank everybody in this league that makes it possible. I want to thank you guys for putting on this broadcast. You guys do a great job, and I want to thank all my teammates at PRM who were in there supporting me throughout this race and helped me out.
All righty, Chris, Josh Personette bringing it home in the second position tonight, and as he heads to Talladega, he's hoping to maybe even translate that into a victory. Good run tonight, bud. We'll see you in Dega.
Thank you, guys.
All righty, we'll now bring in the man of the hour, our race winner, Chris Bass. This is Carlos Zimmerman and Logan Brakey in the broadcast booth. You got us?
I got you.
Man, I'm sure that's not quite the way you wanted to win today, but at the end of the day, a win's a win, and you're the one that's in victory lane tonight.
Yeah, a win is a win. But I do feel for the 46. I really do. I hate seeing stuff like that happen, especially when you're that good and you're that dominant. So I guess it's part of it, I guess. But yeah, it's a win.
We were talking about it at the top of the show at the drop of the green flag. You came into this week in 10th in points, I believe, and we've seen you run up at the front for most of the races that we've covered here this season. You've had fast cars, you've made moves on restarts, and you've been able to lead laps throughout the season. But it seems like you hadn't been able to close it out up until today. You were always either at the wrong place at the wrong time or caught up in somebody else's mess. It's got to feel good to finally be able to put yourself in position to win and just be at the right place at the right time, regardless of what the incident happened between the top two.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to get the monkey off your back, and it's been a rough few weeks, but yeah, it's always good to be at the right place at the right time. And like I said, I just hate what happened to those guys, but it's a good feeling. It's a good thing to get the monkey off your back. That's for sure.
Now, going into Talladega next week, it's as I said to Personette, this is a big shift from the 1.5 miles from a road course to 1.5 miles to a 2.66 mile racetrack. What's going to be your mindset into maybe going back to back when we head to Dega next week?
Oh, it'll definitely be survival. Definitely the safest place to be is out front, but it's definitely you turn into a strictly survival mode, especially at the plate tracks. So yeah, it's that will be my deal. I'll just basically try to just survive it and be there at the end.
Alrighty. Before we send you off on your way to go celebrate your victory, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, my uncle Jay for building my awesome rig here for V1 Rotate Simulation Technologies. Red Eye Designs, of course, for the awesome paint schemes that Brandy Imser puts on the car. Imser Wiggins puts on the car. Friends and family for their support. All the guys in the series I race against, and you guys for putting on such a great broadcast.
Alrighty. Chris Bass, big win tonight for him. First win on the season. Definitely going to help him in the points, as well as the points will shake out as we leave Texas and head to Talladega. And man, just an excellent run for you tonight. You were right place, right time there at the end. Good night and have a good run. And yeah, it was such a great run for you, bud.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All righty, Logan, that is about wrap things up here at Texas. What are your final thoughts as we head on from Texas and move to Talladega?
Just another wild finish in this series. There, you run 160 laps so well, and it all comes down to the final, essentially the final last quarter of the last lap, and just a fantastic finish. You really hate it for the 3 and the 46 after the day they've had, as Chris Bass touched on. You hate to see two dominant cars end their days like that. But real quick before we end, I'm looking at the post-race chat, and it looks like, Carlos, that the 3 lost a right front getting into turn 3 somehow, is what he is claiming had happened. So a very odd situation to have happen on the white flag coming in the checkered.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be up to interpretation as to why that happened between Morse and Takis. Just, of course, hard racing for the win. But if Morse says he blew a tire, I'm not going to really take it out of him to do that. As the guys right now are just they're just talking about just the post race stuff in our chat here, but we're gonna see if any action will be taken. I doubt it, but of course we've been saying it's not the way you want to end a race, but it's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I was caught up in the chat as well. Yeah, exactly. And that's racing, man. Just because you dominate a race and you have the fastest car does not, by any stretch of the imagination, mean that you're going to come home with the win. And that's what we saw this afternoon. And it's going to be another one of those situations next week at Talladega. Guys could dominate super speedway races, have the fastest car in the draft, play the draft the best, but we all know it is never over until they come around that tri-oval for that final time, and it's just going to be another one of those situations next week.
That is where we will be next week, the Talladega Super Speedway cNASCAR Chris Cup Series. Looking forward, though, right now ongoing also on the Flat Out Racing Network channel, the Soda Guys Cup Series are still underway out in Michigan. Race 15 of 35 on their season. Seth Cole and Sam Dyer bringing that action. So if you want to get back to more racing, definitely head on over there and enjoy that race over there. Some good racing from the Soda Guys Cup Series. And as always, good calls from Seth Cole and Sam Dyer. Coming up for FRN on Monday at 7:20 Central, 8:20 Eastern, the IMRC Cup Series Season 8 heads to Michigan as well. The Pure Life 100 as their season is beginning to wind down, as they'll have this race, that race, and then another race coming after that. And then again, next Saturday, June 13th, same time, same great channel, the cNASCAR Chris Cup Series will head to the high banks of Talladega Super Speedway for whatever they decide to call that race. It's going to be definitely a fun one. You'll catch myself, Carlos Zimmerman, and Logan Brickey on that call. Logan, it's a pleasure to have you back here in the booth for this series, and we hope to have you along for the rest of the season.
Yes, absolutely. It was a ton of fun being back up here again. I missed calling the races, and I'm looking forward to the super speedway action next week.
Alrighty, and again, that's where we'll be next week, Talladega Super Speedway. But for right now, for Logan Breaking, my name is Carlos Zimmerman. Thank you so much for joining us this evening here on the Flat Out Racing Network production of the cNASCAR Chris Cup Series. Once again, Chris Bass is your race winner this evening as he picks up his first win of the season. Thank you very much. Stay safe, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night from Fort Worth, Texas.